I guess. Well, thank you for another episode of The Restaurant with Butch Haas and Gary Hashman. So today we have Nathan Hedrick on, and the point is Nathan's got him a new gym, and I want to talk a little bit about that because people may or may not know. And we talked a little bit offline, or not on this podcast, right? When everything was going, or not everything like it as a thing, but when you're starting the gym, just try to get the word out. And yeah, you guys, you were coming down to Category 5 and Hurricane a little bit too, and talking to those guys, just teaching class too. Am I correct? Like,
Yeah, I've been teaching up there. I was probably teaching there like 2 or 3 months, I think. I was teaching like a day class because up there they only have the Monday, Wednesday, Friday evening classes and a Sunday open mat.
mhm.
So when I started training up there, I started teaching Tuesdays and Thursdays during the day just to give them, 2 extra days and two different, time slots that they could be getting in to train.
So yeah, and so now because of that, you've gotten the word out a little bit with some of the community, but that's what I wanted to do today. So tell us what you got going on, and then you really, after you tell us that, I mean, you can get right into your background and everything. Just tell us a little bit about you, like, for everybody that doesn't know, and why this is a big deal, and what's a little bit different that your vision is, and everything like that.
Yeah, so the school's name is Jewel City Grappling Club. We modeled that off of a school up in Middletown that we're kind of loosely affiliated with right now. Queen City Grappling Club under Ruben Vera. He's a clever Luciano black belt, real solid dude. But we got a nice little space down in the west end of Huntington, right off the interstate. Just came across it like a month ago, or well, a couple months ago. Got in there, like actually put mats down about a month ago. Really just trying to offer like a good competitive school. We're doing a lot of like stand up in every class, leg locks, real heavy on the no gi. Just kind of trying to bring like a modern emphasis to training. So
Is that kind of your style, the no-gi? I mean, it's kind of the way of jiu-jitsu right now, and the path that it's heading down. Obviously, successful guys like Gordon Ryan and all the guys on B team, Gary
right,
Tonin. Those guys have kind of, they're driving. The game is much more interesting to watch, and it
yeah.
seems like, especially for younger guys, that's where the interest is. Is that kind of, how old are you, and like why more no-gi? I guess.
So I'm 30, and the reason I'm doing more no gi now. So I've always been a gi guy. I mean, I'm sure Butch remembers. There's been lots of tournaments that I'll show up to and only do gi, and then I'm ready to change and watch matches, and I'm chilling on the sidelines. For a very long time, I didn't enjoy no gi at all, and was like real heavy, like traditional about the gi when Gordon Ryan was coming, like making a name for himself. And I think it was probably only like, I'm going to sound like such an idiot for this. It was probably only like maybe 2 years ago that I even pulled up the first Gordon Ryan match to watch, because I'm notorious to not like watch the sports that I play. Even back when I played basketball in college, I didn't watch any games. I just like to play the sport. And then I started watching. I was like, oh, this is a different sport. You're not doing the same thing we're doing in a gi. And at that point, like guys like my brother, who he's a leg lock whiz, they were already getting so into it that I was like, I'm just gonna stick with the gi. And then it was actually after I started traveling up to train at Ruben's spot that I got up there, and it was a bunch of wrestlers because it's right smack dab in the middle of Ohio. And he was doing only 2 gi classes a week. And they were just like intro beginners classes, basically, like the fundamentals is what he calls it. And everything else was no-gi. So just to be able to like train up there, I had to adapt and start training no-gi. And after the first few weeks of that, I was only training in a gi once every couple of weeks, and it just kind of became more just more natural to be in it. There's a lot of stuff that I realized, like even as a brown belt, I was still like way below brown belt out. So like my wrestling picked up quickly, my leg locks picked up quickly, started doing a lot of different stuff from the feet, like front headlock series, stuff like that. Really, my game just kind of like changed. And when I get back in my gi, I still roll the same, but my game changed overnight in terms of like how I approach a round, how I'm thinking about like positions, the end goal of passes and things like that. So it really just kind of like changed my thought process and made me enjoy doing no gi and appreciate it for like the rule set that it offers also.
Yeah, let's kind of go back to how you got started in jiu-jitsu, and
Yeah.
where you started, as far as I mean, how long have you been training? You said you're a brown belt now. How long have you been training? Where'd you get your start?
I started in the fall of 2010. I was so I'd gone up to Wheeling Jesuit. I was going to play college basketball up there, and spent that whole summer just trying to train my vertical because I wanted to be the guy doing the dunks and all that. But I shot my patella tendons. I had patellar tendonitis in both knees to the point where once I got to college, I was having to skip workouts, miss sit out practices, stuff like that. And it became pretty apparent. I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this with my knees. So I started skipping practices and sneaking up onto the hill to go to a little school in a community center called the Bullpen. At the time, I actually had more dreams of being just a fighter, wanted to do Muay Thai or box. So I went up there and I trained under a guy named Ronnie Green, was running the boxing program up there. Real stocky dude. He had a couple sons that were pro fighters. And I'm young. I was really good at basketball, so it was hard for me to deal with how bad it is to be, or how hard it is to be bad at a sport where the consequences, it's different than getting embarrassed on a basketball court. I would take getting dunked on as somebody who has never played basketball over the experience of getting punched in the face by somebody who boxes any day of the week, because it's just such a different experience. And while I was up there, I tried a little bit of the jiu-jitsu. It's Thomas Hastings, a black belt that still teaches up there. I think it's still called the Bullpen, unless he changed the name.
But that
still
was, they're doing really good, right?
Still the Bullpen.
Yes.
I see him every now and then, man. He's a super good dude. Really unassuming as a black belt too. It's not like he looks unathletic, but he's the stereotype of the jiu-jitsu black belt that you would imagine might have a comic book in his backpack. And that's I'm not hating on it. I have loads in my on my bookshelf in there, but it's you wouldn't expect it, but he'd probably shred his way through most of the rooms that he finds himself in.
Yeah.
This was back when he was a purple belt though. This was this was 2010, so early days. Most gyms did not have their own black belt unless they were a well-established school. Even Ground Zero had Jeremy Walters, but by the time that I'd gotten there, he wasn't really around that much. Tim Dunlap and Ashley Lockwood, they were both they were brown belts, and then Cameron and Butcher, they were purple belts. So that was way back in the day.
I kind of mirror that too. I started out under a blue belt. There was nobody teaching in Athens, Ohio, so I was under a blue belt. Yeah.
Right. I was listening to your all's podcast about transitioning from training to teaching yesterday, and I heard you talking about that. What was that like? Because I've heard a lot of those stories from different people. If you could go back, would you rather have been under a black belt, or do you value the
I personally don't. I think that teaching jiu-jitsu is less about learning from somebody who's a black belt, more about being able to convey information to other people.
Right.
And so I've kind of said this about every move. As long as you understand the move and you can explain it decent enough, then you're a good teacher. And
right.
We look at, I think even Joe Rogan was talking about this other day. Not all the best athletes are great coaches. Teddy Atlas was never a world champion fighter, but he's probably one of the best boxing coaches of all time.
Right.
And I was a decent competitor. I did really good in competitions locally, but something I've always been able to do is if I know something and I know it better than most people, I can usually help them catch up to me. So that's the big thing. I talk about it all the time in class. My idea is I want everybody there to kill me one day. If I do that, then I did my job. I've taught you everything that I know, and then I want you to go on to somebody else. And if you want to go to somebody else and come back and teach me that stuff, I'm also grateful for that.
Exactly, man. That's one of the things, starting out, a lot of the guys that I have coming in are either white belts that I've taught at different schools in the area or brand new guys. So for me, if I'm going to get any training for me, I've got to catch them up as quick as possible. It's not about gatekeeping techniques. It's not about you need to learn 15 different chokes from this position. It's like, no, I want you to get good at these 3 so that when we roll, you're not cycling through 15 techniques that you're terrible at. You're coming at me to where I actually get to work my defenses. When I come on top of you, I have to work my offense because your defense is, catching up. I want them to be where I'm at as quickly as possible so that we can all, like I said earlier, I want to be a competitive school. Already got 2, maybe 3 guys wanting to compete at the Arnold's the beginning of March. And then I know on your all's Facebook for the WVGO, you had said typical schedule, planning on having one in March. So if that doesn't fall on the same weekend as the Arnold's, going to try to come up there and compete at that too.
Yeah, so we always do it at the end of March to avoid,
Perfect.
give us like 2 or 3 weeks in between the Arnold's, right?
Perfect.
Just crazy. The Arnold's. So is do either one of you guys know, is Grappling Industries running that, or does anybody know? Or
Yeah, it's Grappling Industries. Yeah, and I forget who they have doing their seminar this year. It was somebody that I wasn't familiar with, but that doesn't mean anything. Like I said, I don't know. Like, I just don't watch as much as I should.
no,
I
that's
have
the
like
same thing. Yeah, I literally thought about this. I had this thought today. It's funny that you bring that up because I remember it wasn't bragging, but I was just like, I was kind of like, like the same thing story with Gordon Ryan. Like everybody's like, hey man, did you watch the this match the other night? And I'm like, man, I don't watch jujitsu. Like, and I didn't mean it like that, right? I guess, but I was like,
Right.
and everybody had like Flow Grappling, and people would come over to my house and want to watch stuff. And I'm like, I've not seen a match forever. And so then I almost got in this thing where, because I said it so much, I almost wanted to stay like that. For example, like, not a terrible comparison, but I've never seen like The Lion King. And everybody that I talked to, like, you've never seen The Lion King. And so now I feel like I will never.
Pride.
What's that?
Now it's a point of pride. You got to not see The
That's
Lion.
what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm like, I'm never going to see this movie because I don't ever want to stop saying I've never seen it, like.
Right.
So I felt like I almost got that way with jujitsu, and to his credit, I mean, he honestly needs the credit. I think Gordon sucked a lot of us in because I'm like, I got to see this guy that's destroying these legends, like, and destroy. And like, I'd already followed him before. Some of it was like just on accident, but I was like already his friend, like not his friend, but his so-called quote unquote friend on Facebook and stuff before he hit it big. I think because I was talking to Tom DeBlas, but like then watching him tear people up, like with his words and the way that he would do, like if somebody trolls him, he will destroy them with facts. And then I was learning stuff because like not only will he'll come on and say like, hey, I'm the best grappler, but he'll come back with facts and he'll say,
right,
he only did this and he had this submission ratio, and Hedrick Gracie did this and he had this, and here's mine. I'm like, oh, I didn't know this stuff. Like,
it's like it's like if somebody sent a diss track to Eminem and then he responded, but also shows up at your house and beats the crap out of you. Like, you know what I mean? It's like
everybody froze. Sorry.
He's out here ending careers. It's not even. He's at that stage right before Eminem stopped getting invited to BET ciphers. Like, he's about to start having to like make his own label and invite people onto his own.
I think we lost Butch for a second there.
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah, no, fine. It's I think I got a bad connection. So, but you guys are good. I'm sorry.
No, and I think that's the big appeal, right? It's like, and I always said that it's like not my style. I try to be a little more low key. If you look at matches that I won and I'm getting my hand raised and like somebody took a picture of it, I look a little depressed. Like, and I should be like, I won this match and my hand's being raised. And I'm like, I didn't really have fun. I don't know why that is. I don't. And I think part of it is I've been on the losing side of it. I know how bad it sucks. And I don't want to be the guy to make somebody else feel worse. And then I also constantly go back to, I had a there was competition in Greensboro this past weekend. I took a bunch of guys to it, and one of my guys ended up getting third place in his division of three. Right? And it was one of those things. He was like, do I go and pick up that medal? And my answer to him was yeah. And here's why. You beat everybody who didn't show up today.
Right.
There's a lot of people that didn't go. And even if you go to a competition and you were the worst guy out of the 8 people in your division and you lost every match, like, still need to hold your head up, because you're not seeing the worst guys from every school when you go to competition. You're seeing the best guys. The worst guys stay at home. They stay at their school. And the reason you're probably competing is because you're doing pretty good at your home school. Right. So
Not
when
a lot
you
of
go,
people get stomped every day in class and then go try to compete after that.
yeah, if I show up and every day I get my ass kicked in class by all of the white belts, and I'm like, man, I'm going to go ahead and enter in this white belt division. That's a rough day, right? That doesn't happen.
Right.
And so anybody who goes to competition, and I wrote it up on our whiteboard the other day, the It's Not the Critic That Matters by Theodore Roosevelt. That shit echoes, and I read it out loud, and not, I mean, just reading it to yourself is something, but read it out loud, read it with emphasis. And like that, really, it is about the person who goes in and does the thing that is hard to do. And I don't think a lot of people, it's easy. We've all knocked on the guy who was happy about getting his participation 3rd place medal, right?
Right.
But even if it was just a participation 3rd, right? And that's kind of like a mean thing to say. There's some back here, I bet. I'm sure there are. I've got participation 3rds too. Yeah. But it's one of those things where it's like, you had to go and do it. That 3rd place cost an ass whooping.
Right.
Right. And so like, you still had to go do it. And there are a lot of people who are afraid to go do that. So I don't even know.
Good point. I like that that 3rd place cost an ass whooping. Like,
yeah,
still showed up. Like, you still had to have at least 2 matches.
Yeah. Yes,
so like,
and that's the thing. Like, people don't recognize that sometimes. I can't even remember what we were talking about that got me on this tangent, but it echoed for whatever reason because of
I can't
recent
remember
events.
either.
But it was one of those things where it's like, it is. Oh, I know what it was. You were talking about trying to get people up to your level, and it's hard. It's hard to get people to start that you're starting out with as a brown belt, training with white belts and trying to keep yourself competitive. And I had that struggle as well. So kind of go into that a little bit. Well, go back on your jiu-jitsu journey as far as that. And then I do want to touch on that a little bit as far as like trying to.
So I trained up there just like very barely at the bullpen. If it weren't for the fact that I then later started training at Ground Zero, those guys probably wouldn't even remember me. You know what I mean? I wasn't there very long. After that first semester, I was like, well, this is obviously not going to work out with the basketball. And Wheeling Jesuit is like $35,000 a year. And that's in 2010 money. So I was like, I'm going to go back to Marshall, pay that state school money. Started training at Ground Zero, but they didn't really have much of a striking program at the time, and can't fight for them until you're a blue belt. So I just kind of did jiu-jitsu, and like that first year, it was rough because, not that they were like better per se, but I mean, the guys at Ground Zero had been training longer than they had over at, the bullpen. So it was tougher rounds. This is back when Cameron Knight and Butcher were purple belts. So like, one of my first memories is Cameron Knight back when he was like 135 pounds, demolishing me. And I was about like 230, 240, because when I quit basketball, all I was doing was lifting and eating all day long. I got so big, and Cameron smashed me. And my ego honestly couldn't hardly take it. So I'd be there for 2 weeks, and I'd leave for a month or two, and then I'd come back for a couple weeks, and I'd leave for a month or two. Then they moved into their new gym, and I came back pretty consistently. They had a noon class. Man, this shake's got me burping or hiccuping. But they had their noon class that worked out for me. So I started pretty consistently, got my blue belt, kept working, got my purple belt. And then after I got my purple belt, I decided to take my first fight. So I went up to Cincinnati and spent some time training at a Muay Thai gym up there, Saken, under Neil Rowe. He was Rich Franklin's head coach when he was in the UFC.
Good.
So I trained under him.
I know the name because I know they worked out with Georgels as well.
Yeah.
Georgels.
Yeah. So they were all like real tight back at that point. Neil and George aren't as like close together, but there's a lot of cross training between the fighters up there still. So I trained under Neil for a minute, just getting ready for my first fight. I came back, I won that fight, and then Neil offered to let me and my dog that I had actually adopted while I was up there. It was the last week I was up there. I adopted big old, he's still laying right here. Still got him. But big old cane Corso dog I adopted. He was like, you can both come back up here and live in the gym if you'll just teach the jiu-jitsu classes. Because he was a blue belt, having to teach him, and he has a full-time job as a prison guard, and he doesn't want to deal with it. So I moved back up there and taught for him for about 2 years. And over the course of that, I started out going in the mornings to train under George, and then kind of leaned a little bit more towards, I don't know if you guys know John Stutzman.
Yeah, John's a good guy.
What is it?
John's a good guy, man. A lot, it's funny. A lot of these names you mentioned, hopefully people know them. I mean, these are all like, even I was thinking Cameron Knight, like for people that don't know him, is a phenom, right? Like you went and taught Abu Dhabi as well. He's at Matt Brown's now, right? I mean, like a lot of these guys are awesome people.
Right. I've been like really lucky to get to train with some just phenomenal grapplers. Like I hope to be there one day, but like, I'm not saying I've gotten to like train and hang on their level, but I've gotten to train with some like just really great people through jiu-jitsu. It's one of the best things about the sport is like how it's not like the NBA where like if I was a basketball player, the likelihood that I'm ever going to get to play basketball with LeBron James is slim to none. But like a couple months ago, I went to a seminar up at Queen City and got to train with Nicky Ryan, and Craig Jones. So it's like it's a very like smaller scale of the community. So that's one really cool thing. You get to meet a lot of people and like go a lot of places from it.
The accessibility is the crazy thing about something like this. Like and even MMA, the accessibility, like MMA, I think it's a legit top tier sport now. And UFC fighters, now not as accessible as guys like Nick Rod or the Ryans or anything like that.
Right.
But even MMA fighters are fairly accessible to us in the jiu-jitsu and MMA world.
And and that's a good point. But you said it's bigger with the MMA, but like even Butcher's by no means like small time, but Butcher for his last fight went out there and was working with Nate Diaz or Nick Diaz, whichever one just had their fight. He was out there training him, getting ready for his fight. So like, that's wild. A kid from, Lincoln County, West Virginia is out there training a UFC fighter for like a headline fight.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. And Butch has got a laundry list of names way longer than mine, but I've because of jiu-jitsu, I've got to train with a lot of guys. Wes Sims, I've trained with him. Because of Butch, Stephen Bonner, and Rumble Johnson, both of them, RIP. We need to have a big long talk about that eventually. We're not going to get emotional about it today, but those guys, I've trained with a lot of names, Dean Lister, but I've trained with a lot of names that would not necessarily be accessible if it was a different sport. Even if it was hockey, I probably wouldn't even train with somebody at that level if it was hockey. And hockey is not, I don't think hockey is very much bigger than MMA.
You wouldn't think. Who knows?
I don't know if I'd count it as bigger.
Maybe in Canada, but I don't think it's bigger in the United States. If it is, it's only slightly.
Yeah, if it is.
Yeah, and
in Canada, I'm sure it's bigger though.
But that's why I think why jiu-jitsu gets, I'm joking about the term, but so cultish, right? Because of that, right? Because like once you're in jiu-jitsu and then you're in that kind of circle where, quite honestly, those guys are going to be better friends with you the better you are too, right? Like, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but if you're a purple and above, now you have something more in common, right? Because they're like, oh, this guy, like, again, we can't really like, carry their jock, even like Craig Jones and those guys are awesome, right? So like, even as good as we are, there's levels to the thing and they're above, but still the point is, but at least now you're in the conversation. Like, you're like, okay, they have to tone it back a lot, but they can give and take and go back and forth, right?
Right.
Which is beautiful, right? Like, and that's why, and it is amazing, right? And I think people have a much deeper respect for you when we do that, or when we do train. And I was just on another podcast the other night, but it was talking about kind of that, is that, I think somebody had like, how, you stayed in contact with some of these guys, but that's why there's no magic behind it. Like, I don't think I have a great personality or anything. It's like, but
I
I
don't
can
either.
with Stefan, right? Because we have a similar, we had a similar training background. Obviously he's world famous, but it was like, we are like similar size. We can get up and kind of and roll with each other and do a certain thing, and then go back and talk jujitsu. Like, oh, you're with Carlson Gracie, right? Like, well, so is De La Hiva, and so is Marcelo, and here's this, and a similar training background. And I watched you, and oh, did you train with Mario Sperry? I love Mario Sperry. Like, tell me, like blah blah blah. And it's like, now all of a sudden we're like the same person, right? Like, what I mean, like, other than the fame and that he made UFC popular, but
that's another thing too, is like, and I don't know if you guys are lucky enough to work with anybody who does jujitsu, but like, trying to explain jujitsu is impossible to the regular person who doesn't come to a class. Like, if somebody asked me to, oh, well, how would you do a move? Well, okay, we're gonna have to lay down on the carpet here, Joyce. So I can show you how to do a sweep, right? Like, it's for me to teach you about jujitsu in the workplace is going to be difficult. So it's nice, and I'm lucky enough that I just so happen to work with somebody who is he just got his purple belt recently. And so like, he'll show up and he'll be like, "Hey Gary, what do you think about this position? What do you do from the Russian tie? What are your favorite takedowns?" And we can talk through that. And then if somebody stumbles upon us and like, I'm talking about like, okay, I get to the Russian tie, I look for the foot sweep. If that doesn't work, I go into this lock and I throw them by, I'm taking the back. He understands that, they don't. And they're like, can you show me? I'm like, not really, because I'm not really throwing Thomas to the ground today. To like, the point, I'm just trying to get it through his head. Like, this is where I would go with it. And he can take it. So it's nice. I think the same thing happens when we meet, as higher up belts, purple, browns, and blacks. When we meet these people who are in the jiu-jitsu community that are higher up, whether it be former UFC guys, world champions, guys like Gary Tonin and Gordon Ryan, that like, at least we have enough invested that we know what's going on, And it's such a small community of the people who are purple, browns, and blacks, that when you meet them, you don't want to piss them off, because those are the only people I have to talk about with this.
Right. Well, also, I'm sure the guys like that are like, Butch, you've hosted, I'm sure you couldn't count how many seminars, but how many times you think you've heard, like, after a seminar during the Q&A, have white belts, their questions are like, what do you do for conditioning? Or like, what's your diet? Or like, how often do you roll? And it's like, you're not asking the big questions of like, how do you actually work through, like, when you're developing a series, like, what's your step-by-step process? Like, do you work out the defenses first, or do you work through the offensive chain? So I'm sure, like, most of the time they're getting like this, like, very superficial, like, this idol, not worship, but like, people are like revering them, and they don't see them as humans. You know what I mean? They almost see them as like these like mythic creatures.
And that's the difficult, like, and the kind of the step-by-step, it's not on purpose, but I've actually thought this through one day, because I was thinking, a lot of times people, just to go on with our conversation, is that I do stay in touch with anybody that's came, right? And for the right reasons. Like, I'm not fanboying out, but it's like, for example, Stefan was one of my best friends, but it had to do, I think, because I'm trying to figure out, like, we were always good friends, but I don't think there was ever a time that he showed, I was like, oh my God, like, your fight with Forrest Griffin was, I'm like, we might have brought it up, like, maybe, but like, not real. I think we know that's where he became famous, right? I don't know how much you want to talk about it. He also lost that fight, right? Like, it was like never, like, if any guy come in, you're not like, oh my God, like, because I think that's where you start losing people. It's a little bit different, like, if you're like, hey, I saw this, and the way you act. But if it's just like, for example, not to keep talking about Stefan, but I'm in Vegas all the time because of work. So I'm down like 3 times a year minimum. So what I do, like I would be like, a lot of times people want to meet Steph, and I'm like, hey, like, you want to go meet him? Like, I'll take you over, and I would bring a group of like 14 or 15 people that I'm at this conference with, and they would go and meet him, right? And sometimes it was very awkward, like Steph was really cool, but like, and he knew, like, he was doing it also. Like, there was a time that I actually said, I was like, hey man, do you want me to pull back? Because I'm starting to feel like I'm using you, like, meaning that they're getting, these 14, 15 guys are getting a lot from you, but this has got to be exhausting, like talking about, and especially, so a lot of those guys didn't train, so they would just come in like, oh man, you're fighting with Anderson Silva, like blah blah blah. It just be like exactly how you'd think if you met, one of our idols or something. A little bit crazy, right? But to his credit, it was cool enough. But I think, that was one of the things. I think we connected on a different level that was like, hey, I respect you. Everything you did is amazing. I need to let you know that stuff. But I wasn't saying like, this is crazy. And then we could start, we kind of like what Gary said, we spoke the same language. Like, I was kind of laughing away because I thought that, like, if you're talking foot sweeps, Russian ties, blah, 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 like that literally is a different language, right? Like for most people. So we can get down, share the same language, and then get into stuff. And then eventually we didn't talk about fighting anymore, right? Then that was the next thing. I know, for example, Josh Carey from Huntington, best friend was Anthony Rumble Johnson, right? And they connected. They both went through a hard time in their life, both of them at the same time. They connected on that level, and they had this bond from that. And that's kind of what happened with the rest. Like, obviously we're all normal people, but it's like, once you can get beyond the fighting thing, we all speak the same language. That's what brings us together. Then how do we connect after, right? Like, what's what's the dynamic here? And that becomes beautiful. Like, once, which is the same at the gym, we connect on jiu-jitsu or MMA, but then now are we going to stay friends because of, your family life or different stuff,
Right. And that reminds me of, must have been like a month and a half ago. We got this little market in town. It's, it's a big building, but it's got a bunch of different shops and restaurants in it. Me and my girlfriend go in there to get, I don't remember if I was getting breakfast or coffee or whatever, but we're at this little breakfast place waiting in line. I turn around to look down the building, just see who might be in there this day. And shit you not, it's John Bernthal. Standing in the middle of Huntington, West Virginia, the Punisher. He's just right there, just chilling. I turn around, I see him at first, and then I turn back around. I'm like, all right, I'm dreaming. I'm expecting to look this way, and like everything's weird. I'm like, this can't be real. I'm in the middle of Huntington, West Virginia. I turn back around and I look at him, and he gives me this look that he's just like, yeah, I'm me. He, like, obviously he's seen a bunch of people recognize him before. And what you were saying about like how you approach him, I knew it immediately. I was like, this is about to be the coolest conversation I've ever had, or the shortest conversation I've ever had. And it's going to depend on how I act. So I just was like, yo, man, like, what are you doing here? Like, inside, I'm screaming like a 12-year-old girl. I'm like, it's the Punisher. Like, everybody loves the Punisher. And if you don't, you should. But we got to talking. I guess he's got family in the area. His wife is from somewhere in West Virginia around here. So they were down here doing some family stuff. And it was like you said, I could tell that my demeanor talking to him had him kind of like coming out of the like, oh, I'm like, got to keep you at arm's length. So we got into talking about that I was opening up the school. He started talking about how he had grown up boxing and his kids are in jiu-jitsu. They just went to an IBJJF tournament recently. He was talking to me about the, forget the name, I would plug it if I could, but the gym that his kids train out of up in Cleveland, maybe Pittsburgh. No, I think it's Pittsburgh. But it ended up being like a 20-minute conversation, just me and him just chilling and talking, because nobody else recognized him at all. So while he was waiting on his food and I was waiting on my stuff, we literally just got to stand there and talk for 20 minutes. And at the end of it, it wasn't like, yo, man, let me get your autograph. I was just like, yo, man, can I just get a picture real quick and then I'll skedaddle? Like, and he was really cool about it. It's up on my Instagram. It's my favorite picture. Like,
well, I'll be honest. I was gonna say, like, just to further on him, he's one of my favorite people. The two, I heard a podcast. We just obviously just did Joe Rogan, but he did another one before that with this random guy, and I can't remember the guy's name, but it's one that nobody would listen to, and it was one of my favorite podcasts like ever, because he's just talking about his demons and
Yeah.
all the street fights he's got into. He talked a little bit about Joe Rogan, but like you can look at his face and know that guy's done some shit, right?
Yeah.
Like he's got a look to him, and he's a very intense act. I mean, he's definitely one of my. I mean, I was a big. I didn't watch The Punisher, just like I haven't watched The Lion King, but Walking Dead, those first 3-4 episodes or seasons that he was on were the best, 100%. Like in his character,
Right.
like when he, if you haven't watched Walking Dead, sorry, he dies. But
That's me. I haven't. That's my thing is I never watched Walking Dead, so I'm like, well, why start now?
yeah,
But I didn't know until the other day, like it was like right after I met him. I didn't even know he was in The Walking Dead. So I was like, okay, now I'm gonna have to start watching. Also, once you guys carry the conversation for a minute, I'm gonna go use the restroom.
all right.
I've been on shakes for a week and it's running through me.
Go get it, brother. Go get it. No, and it comes back to what we're kind of talking about is like, if I had to talk to white belts about jujitsu all day long, it would drive me nuts.
Well, you've been there. We're the black belt, right? So
Yeah.
everybody wants to, like, I get you. That actually is the best metaphor, because it's happened to me, and I'm sure it's happened to you. Like if you decide like you're gonna go to get something to eat after the gym, and then everybody's kind of excited to be with you, so they just on and on, and you're like, hey man, we can talk about something that's not jiu-jitsu. Like,
Yeah.
like,
Well,
right?
and I can only think that that's what they're thinking, right? Like everybody already knows me. If you're any kind of fame, if you have any kind of stardom, whether it be, a track star, or if you're the last thing you want to talk about when you're sitting down for Chipotle is that, right? Like I don't want to go to Outback Steakhouse, sit down, get my steak, and then somebody come over and talk to me about my job at Terminix.
Yes.
Right? Like I don't want to do that, man. That's not, and I can only imagine that those folks are the same way. And I always relate it back to that. Now I try and do my best to be respectful. If it's after class and I'm getting ready to go home, and class ended at 8 and it's now 8:25, but I have a white belt that's chatting me up about, hey, what do you think about this Gogo Plata entry? Well,
Yeah.
I wish you knew how to shrimp.
Yeah.
That would be nice. I would like that you learned that first. And
Yeah.
it's hard because I'm trying to be respectful. I appreciate the fact that they're passionate and they're going out and they're finding information on their own, and then they're trying to figure out how they can implement that into their game. It's just, I'm kind of done now, and I don't want to talk about that no more. And I'm
Yeah.
over that part of my day.
I'm glad that somebody else, because I always wondered if I was just an ass too, but I actually don't like. I wouldn't say I don't enjoy talking jujitsu, because we have a podcast and we talk about it all the time, right? But I guess it's like it goes to the same thing we said earlier on our last podcast was, I like to shut it off, right? I like to just, there's a time, and when I shut it off, like it's hard to open it back up. Meaning like when I'm shut down, I'm shut down. So now if you're trying to open it back up with jujitsu, and I've already said I'm done, like I'm getting annoyed inside my head. Like, I'm like, oh God, like, and that's probably how those guys are too. It's like, I've already had this talk about the Forrest Griffin fight 100 times. I had this talk that I'm the Punisher 100 times, like, and that I changed your life, and that because of this, and, like, okay, cool. Like we all like those stories. Like I like, I actually like the messages better than I do like it face to face. I get some nice messages, and I got another, and I need to add him to our list. This guy, Jason Bodie, I think his name is, but this random message. He's a black belt in Ohio somewhere, I think, maybe under Sala. I'm probably screwing it all up, but it was just random message on Facebook one time. He said, you don't know this, but a long time ago, you wrote me a message and just said, hey, so, something, you did jujitsu, and I hope you're doing good. Simple. And he said, for whatever reason, I had kind of quit jujitsu, and that little thing motivated me to get started again. I was a purple belt, and because of you, I'm a black belt now. And he goes, I don't want nothing. I just want to tell you that meant like a ton to me, because you like to know that you help, change somebody's life or whatever. I like that. But if he said that in person, I'd be like, oh shit, like I don't know what to say to you. Like
that's too much. That's too much if you hear that in person. And that's the thing. We were while you were gone there, I don't know if you heard or if you could overhear us, but we were just talking about like like the idea of fame, right? Or somebody who's famous, and they you enter into their regular world, right?
Yeah.
Where they're not doing their famous thing, and then you
Right.
ask them about it. Now I work at Terminex, and it would be like somebody coming up to me and being like, "Hey man, can you tell me about Centricon termite protection while I'm at Outback Steakhouse?" And it's
Right.
like, I don't really want to talk about that right now. 'Cause
Exactly.
I'm trying to have dinner with my family. And so I can only imagine. We were kind of talking. It's like, and this is nothing against, I appreciate the white belts who do this, but when they come to me, it's after class, or if they happen to see me on the street I'm shopping at Food Line or something, and they come up and they're like, "Oh man, I was wondering about this Goga plot entry." And it's
Right.
like,
Right.
well, I really wish you just knew how to shrimp.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like it's good
Exactly.
stuff. So, and it is, like I said, it kind of goes back to that levels. Like it's nice when we're able to talk to purple, browns, and blacks about stuff like this, because it's a quick touch, and then it passes us by, and we get to talk about regular stuff.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so, I going back to you, I think we kind of got up to purple belt. What happened after purple belt? You're a brown belt now.
Yeah.
And
So
how do we get to Jewel City? Where are we at now?
all right. So yeah, so I was in Ohio, uh teaching it at Neil's, and then I had to get knee surgery. I just shredded up my internal meniscus on my right knee. It was pretty bad. They had to cut some of it out. They couldn't do the repair, so I don't know how much they left me with, but they cut some of it out. Uh, I still for a while had a lot of trouble with it. I'll get to what I've been doing recently that's been working out for me a lot in a little bit. But so I came back, was in Huntington for my knee rehab because I got family here and stuff like that. And then once I got healthy again, I reached back out to Neil, and while I was gone, we were on a ticking, timer. But the landlord had reached out and been like, "Hey man, I haven't noticed that homeless guy in the parking lot recently. You think maybe we can keep him from moving back in?" So Neil was like, "Yeah, man." He's like, "I'd like to have you teaching, but you can't be living here." And I was like, "Well, all right." So I looked around, and really for me, it worked out best to move to Dayton and just be training under Stutzman full time. So
So
I
you
moved
were
up
you
there.
were kind of living that Daisy Fresh life.
Kind of, man. I like when I was in Cincinnati, I would wake up. It was me and Ronan. We would sleep on a camping cot that I had back in my back in the office. The office didn't even have electricity. I had to run like power cords back there to run my crock pot and stuff to make my like gourmet ramen noodle meals that I was eating and all this stuff. Yeah, it was wild. I was having to work at a country bar there, and then when I moved to Dayton, I had an apartment, just a little studio that me and Ronan lived in, just like 10 minutes down the road from Stutzman's, and kind of the same thing, just living that gym life all the time. I'd take him to the gym, crate him in the locker room, and then go back to the weightlifting area with him during the daytime. But yeah, it was a long period where all I was doing was training, which it's been nice having the gym because it's kind of getting back to that. This is all I'm doing right now. I've got some other stuff, a little bit of other stuff on the side, like some just odd jobs, manual labor, stuff like that. And I was serving for a while, and right up until we actually got started, and stopped that just to be able to offer like a full schedule, be able to offer classes every day. Yeah, so I moved up to Dayton and was training under Stutzman. And then I was up there for about a year and a half. And then my lease was running up because I think the second one I'd done 6 months, and money was getting a little tighter. While I was up there, I was working at a strip club, which that was a little wild.
Tell me about it. Now I'm interested. Now you've got my attention.
It was
But yeah, that's still, was it the Brass Ass? I've been to that one in Cincinnati.
no, it was what was it?
The real thing,
The
Gary.
living room.
No, it's really Brass Ass and Brass Ass 2, both in Cincinnati.
It was the living room, and it was
Living room. See, that's awesome.
yeah, it wasn't like the top tier that you would find. And they were and they also had a second strip club that didn't, it was like just like 2 minutes down the road, and they didn't staff a bouncer there because it was not popular. But one night we get a call, they're like, "You got to go down to whatever this other place was called. And I was like, all right. So I plug it into my GPS and I go down there. And I realized why they didn't have like many people going down there. It was the JV squad of strippers. It was, I
Yeah.
mean,
You mean
it
West
was
Virginia? No, everything I'm saying right now is offensive, but it's all in
right.
jokes. It's all in
Right.
jokes. Yes.
No, this was rough. This was rough. And the one that I worked at was just, it was dirty, and you see a side of that world which, like, I'd never been in a strip club until I went and applied for the job.
Yeah.
So like everybody who like frequents strip clubs has like the outside view of like, oh, this is how the girls act when they want your money. They don't get to like hear just the vulgar things that come out of their mouths and just how dirty they are outside of.
I really am interested because I think you're right. So the same, like my wife and I have had to talk about, I don't like strip clubs, right? Because of what you just said. One, it's fake, right? It's weird. It's high pressure sales. And it's like, it's just odd, like giving somebody money for, like, I was gonna say nothing in return, but you are seeing girls naked. I get it. Like, it's just odd. And like in my experience, I've had to again, I'm entertaining people for work. So people are like, let's go to strip club. I'm in positions where I've had to go, and I've went to, and I wasn't joking about that brass ass. I really was there one time, and the same. And so what's funny is I don't know if I've ever said this on this podcast or not, but I had to go for work. So I'm like, look, man, I'm not into strip. I went to the bar because I also wasn't trying to get a free show. So I was making sure that I was faced a different direction. But you get hounded almost more at that place. Like, it kept coming up and been like, hey, like, what are you here for? And I was like, hey, man, like, and I was honest. I said, I came with my friends for work. I'm not, and I told them the same thing. I'm not trying to not get a free show. So I'm just trying to face this way and just drink. Right. Actually, it's like one of those things. It must light a fire under their ass, because they're like, well, what about a lap dance? I'm like, I'm not joking. Like, I want to sit here. I was like texting my wife at the same time, so that she was going on. But just to put a bow on that story, it was funny because this girl kept saying, well, why don't you buy me a drink, right? A stripper. And I was like, I don't want to. Like, I just want to sit here and, like, while my friends are doing that. And she's like, it's nothing serious, just buy me a drink. And I was like, okay, fine. And then so I told the bartender, I was like, can you get her a drink? And she's like, sure. So then she comes back, she goes, it's $75. It's like, what effing kind of drink did you get? And she goes, well, you're not buying her a drink, you're paying for her time. And I was like, listen, did you just not hear this entire conversation? I just want to be left alone, but then I felt bad because I said it like that in front of this girl whose job is to get attention. And I am in a place where my job is to give her attention and money. And I was like, man, I get it. This is just totally awkward. And then she, anyway, it all ended fine because she was like, oh, it's fine. Like, she didn't take offense. And she said, I'll sit here. And anyway, she sat with me for 30 minutes and gave me the worst conversation ever, because she told me she was a model, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And she's like, you want to see my modeling pictures? Like, I guess. And so she showed me a bunch of selfies that she took in the mirror, and I was like, is this really happening? Is this real life right now? Like, am I, like, but anyway, sorry. So my point, like, I'm with you. I was making a joke, but I do want to hear the stories, but I also wanted to preface for anybody that's listening that I'm not a slime ball, which not people that go to strip clubs are slime balls either. I just wanted to make sure they understood.
Okay, well, I will tell you this: I don't go to strip clubs. I am a slime ball. So
that's what I'm saying. I'm not.
The two sides of the spectrum.
If I was in Butch's shoes, I would absolutely sit and get the free show while those guys paid for everything. I would absolutely.
Don't do that. You know why I learned this thing? Because I'll tell you another story. Obviously I'm from Cleveland. My uncle and aunt owned a strip club. It was called Pinky's, right? I did not even know my uncle and aunt at all. I just knew they owned a strip club. So when I was 16, that's every teenage boy's dream, is to go to a strip club. And everybody would always talk. And I was like, I just so happen to have an aunt and uncle that own a strip club. So we scraped together money and went, bunch of high school kids, probably like 5 or 6 of us, literally barely had money. We didn't know there was a cover charge. So you got in there, it was like a 2-drink minimum. That literally broke us. Like, I'm not even joking. We were 16. So you're also not allowed to go to strip club. I got in because I went there and I was like, they didn't know who I was, but I was like, I think my uncle owns this. And they're like, what's his name? And I said it. And they're like, yeah, I guess he does. So they're like, they didn't really check our ID. We went in, and we didn't know, 16-year-old kids, we didn't know what to do. Like, we had no money. So we got in there and had no money. So then these girls kept coming up to us and were like, do you want this? And we were like, no. Stupidly enough, was being like, I don't have any money. And then they're like, what the fuck are you in here for? Like, right? And so like they were getting madder and madder because we were watching the free show and not giving them any money. And then they would they were being like super passive aggressive. They were doing a good job, but they would stand next to us and be like, can't believe people come in here for a free fucking schwa. Well, I'm showing my pussy for $1. Like we're like, holy shit, like this is the worst night of our life. So we left with our tails in between our legs, and I never forgot that night. So like I knew when I went in, do not get a free I had learned one lesson,
right,
lots of lessons, but so I'm intrigued by the whole thing because I've not really had the best experiences, but I get it. Like if I could go to a bar and drink a beer, or I could go to a bar and drink a beer and see a girl take a
right, right.
Good. Like I'm not knocking anybody for doing it. It makes sense, right?
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're cool.
So you get the job there. What happens? You're working at a strip club.
So the first thing that stands out about everything is before I forget. So this was the point that I was forgetting. So all these stories also make you think about like, what would it be like to be a girl in one of these like sex work positions who's not getting guys willing to buy a lap dance? Like if it's consistent, like that would have to be like a major blow to the self-esteem. Like think about all these girls, like OnlyFans is so huge right now, but for every girl that's like moved herself out to Las Vegas or California or wherever she wants to go to live, there's 1,000 girls that have just been daily posting pictures and made like $15. And like, that's gotta be humbling. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The world's
gotta be humbling.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Like, and not, that's why, for people that knock all this stuff, I don't want to get down this big moral thing, but that's what I was just in Vegas again, like the other day for work, and there was a lot of hookers in my hotel, in Caesars, nonetheless, right? And somebody was actually, they're being kind of rude to him. Like I don't, who cares? I was being nice, by nice. It's not like I was partaking in the hookers.
Friendly.
But
I mean, they're people.
Yeah, I was not treating like trash. And then somebody made a weird comment, and I said, what's funny? I said, is that people do this on Tinder for free. And that's not that much different, right? Like it's, as soon as there's money, like you're hooking up and thinking there's nothing wrong with that. And then there's
right.
Where then these people are actually, it's like a business or whatever. And you're treating them that much different. Like I don't care. You don't have to like hookers or not like them. They're just like you just said, they're people. Like I'm not going to treat anybody rude or like they're lesser than me because I have a different job. It's the thing. Again, I wasn't talking to a bunch of people, but if I was at a bar and some hooker said hi, which they did, that's their job, is trying to get, and I'd just say hi back, and they'd be like, oh, what are you doing later? And I was like, I'm not that, but
right.
Like, and then that's, you don't have to be rude after that. But yeah, it is such a weird thing because the whole thing is, it's funny how people treat people in that industry in general when porn is the biggest industry in the world, and we all pretend like watch it and that we're all on higher ground. You're like, no, not really. But my point is, people should quit being mean to people that are, either in a strip club or hookers or that, like they shouldn't,
right.
But anyway,
here's the real thing. How many bad choices are any of us away from doing something that we find morally reprehensible?
Well, hey, listen, we have a hard time talking because nobody's going to pay us for sex, right? So, but yet we're the one that cheap for stuff. So,
but who's to say that like I'm not a few bad instances or bad situations away from selling drugs or stealing cars or whatever it is, whatever is found morally reprehensible, right? And so it's, it's kind of the same thing with like the justice system and ex people who are ex-felons. I've got my wife has a friend, Wes, and Wes went to prison for a lot of bad stuff, did a lot of bad things. And while he was that guy, he was not to be trusted and probably not the guy to be around. after he got out of prison, got himself cleaned up, got into drug rehabilitation, became a chemical dependency counselor, and then went on to help people. And now the Wes that is Wes now is somebody I would trust my kids with. And
Yeah.
it all comes from, like, we've all got a lot of, like, all of us have different circumstances going on in our lives. And you can't say that it's this one thing that pushed us down this road. I was lucky. I was poor as a kid, but man, I was lucky as anybody because nobody had more love in their house than I did. Right? My parents loved each other. All of the kids were told that they were loved all the time. Maybe we didn't have a lot of money, but like we had a lot of guidance and never any fear of my folks. Like there was never any fear. And that's not to say I didn't get my butt whooped, because I did, but like there was never any like, this isn't a safe spot. I know people who had money who didn't go home thinking that their house was a safe spot.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, who's to say that we're not a few situations away from being those people? And we do need to, like, I hope that's something people think about. We need to temper what we think about who people are and what they are and whether or not they can change. Hopefully we can provide them opportunities to change. And maybe we think it's morally reprehensible now, but like there's something that happened in their life to push them that way.
Right.
Well, now that we've all said it's okay to do that, tell me some crazy stories.
So here's the craziest fact is I worked there for, I don't know how many months, 7-8 months. I never broke up a fight between guys. It was always between strippers. And it was always because they were stealing each other's money or men. Always.
It makes sense.
What is it?
It makes sense. I get right. Yeah, it does make sense, right?
But one of the fights, two of them I can think of as some of the most impressive things I've seen. Because one of them is like, I've never seen somebody as athletic as that. And the second one, even watching UFC, have never seen someone drop somebody against a cage like I saw one of these strippers do to one of the other ones. So the first one, one girl had stolen money out of the locker room. And I guess the one that had gotten stolen from had gone back there. The other girls have been like, well, we saw this girl like mess around your purse. And she comes out and like waits for like a break between songs and goes, hey, bitch. And everybody turns and looks, including this other stripper. And she takes off at like not even like a light sprint. It's kind of like you know, when people are throwing the javelin, they've got those kind of like bouncy legs.
I got to ask first, is she still in her heels?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Still in her heels.
And
coming at like a nice little bouncy trot. And then I shit you not, she jumped like a spider monkey. It must have been 12 feet. Looked like Spider-Man. Like she just came off the ground and she didn't slow down. She didn't start dropping. She just went straight to trajectory into this other girl, grabs her by the hair, slams her into a corner near the office, and just starts slamming her head against the wall over and over again. And so like I get in there and break it up, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on, guys? Like, let's break it up. And she's like, she stole money from me. And this other girl's like bleeding. And she's like, at some point she must have caught her with a few punches because her eyes are starting to swell up and everything. And so like we broke them up. She didn't get her money back because the girl and she already got her ass kicked. So like, what's the point in admitting it now? She's not getting out of anything. So she just left with the money and went. And then there's another night, the manager liked me pretty well. So like, we talk and stuff after work before I do all my stuff. And one night he was like, man, you got to come in here and look at this. And this was like one of those, like, the hands off, you're not supposed to be like all hands on with them at this place. And he's like, you gotta check this out. And he rewinds one of the cameras in one of the private booths. And this girl had legitimately, she still had her clothes on, but this was literally she kept her hand behind her back for the entire like five songs in a row, and just was bouncing up and down, just bouncing up and down with her hand behind her back. And he was just like, he's like, is she stupid? Does she think I don't know what she's doing in there? The same girl before we went into the office was talking about like, I made $1,500 tonight. And I'm thinking like, how did you even have time to do that? That doesn't make sense mathematically. It's like, however much per song. I did the math and I'm like, how long have you been here today? I just got here at 10, but like, damn. And then he shows me that. I'm like, ah. And then he clicked a button trying to like switch it back to like the present time, but he switched cameras and it showed our outside camera. And there were 2 strippers out there arguing next to the wall. And one of them's brand new, the one that's against the wall. And the other one, I can't remember her name, but her husband was there. What is it?
Said it's probably best you don't say anyway, right?
Right. Well, so her husband.
Well, even if we did know her name, it's not really Alexis.
Right. I think it was like Stevie Nicks. It was one of those like she was a little bit older. She was like closer to her 40s, 35, something like that. But she's out there like jabbing at this girl, poking her in the chest. And this girl's husband, the one that's doing the poking, her husband used to fight back in the days, and he would, would always tell me stories about like living in gyms, and she lived in gyms with him for years back in like the early UFC days. And he did some like, cage fights back when it was like the Wild West, not any like promotions that any of us knew of, but like he'd been around and she'd been around. And all of a sudden she stops poking her and is just staring into her soul over the camera. And we're both just watching like it's TV, like this happened like another time. And all of a sudden she comes in and drops clean elbow right to the fucking head. This girl starts to slump. She catches her in an over under to hold her up and starts dropping knees into this girl. Boom, boom. Eventually the girl pushes her away a little bit, and this girl comes right over the top with her right hand. She shells up, she hits her with another elbow. And that's when me and the manager looked at each other, and I was like, oh shit, that's my job, isn't it? He's like, yeah, you need to get out there. We've been watching it like it was a pay-per-view. Just on the other, it was like on the other side of the brick wall of the room we were in. And we were just like, oh, I should probably go out there and break this up. She had pieced this girl up. She was like groaning, having trouble getting up. I think she landed a leg kick in the middle of it at some point. Like
she did some Muay Thai, huh?
Right. Yeah. I've never seen even at UFC, that was one of the cleaner, like off the cage exchanges. I've never seen anything like that in a street fight. I did see a girl's 2 front teeth get knocked out with a cowgirl boot once.
Oh, but see, like and then you finish the story. But here's the other part that's making me laugh is that it's not like us. Like if you mess my face up, like I don't really have a job that requires my face to look nice.
Right.
They do. Like, and I don't know how much makeup covers this kind of stuff, but that's like pretty serious. Like, when we joke around, you're like, don't touch the moneymaker, right? That's a joke. That is
right.
I mean, there's other things that are their money, but that's one of them. Like, I don't want to look at like boobies and a butt attached to somebody that has 2 black eyes and like a giant cut with stitches.
Yeah,
right?
Or like if it looks like us, like our faces on a girl's body would not look pretty. Big old like calcified foreheads and cauliflower ear, square jaws, black eyes.
Yeah, this is like a double whammy. Like this is I can imagine. Like I can just picture them crying over like 1, I got beat up, and then 2, like they're like, I can't go to work. Like, what am I gonna do? Right? Like, you know what I mean? Like the whole thing is it's
really. I mean,
funnier to me in my head. Like
I'd say it's not even work because like unless you're a female who's like actively fighting and like doing stuff like that, it's a whole different thing to go out in public with like a black eye and like all beat up.
Yeah.
It's like as a guy, you might go out and like, if you're tiny, you just look like you got beat up. Like if you're like a tiny guy and you go out with black eyes, you don't look like you like won the exchange in any way. But a bigger guy like our size, like they're like, oh, that's a tough dude. He's getting in fights and stuff. They don't assume you lost. So it's like, oh, it's a tough guy. He knows how to throw a punch kind of thing. That's more assumed.
Even when it is a woman's job, we look at people like, and this is very sexist of us, at least a lot of us, maybe not you guys, but a lot of us, we look at women like Valerie Loretta, who fought in Bellator, or Mackenzie Dern, or Valentina Shevchenko, and we look at these women, we're like, you're so pretty.
Yeah.
Right.
Why
Dude,
would you do that? Nothing about them fighting enhances their attractiveness to women, to men.
No.
Nothing. Now it's kind of cool that they do it.
Yeah.
But nothing about them fighting enhances their attractiveness to me.
No, I find it hard to watch. Like I love that women do MMA. I love how many girls are getting into like wrestling right now. I think that's going to be big for MMA in like 5 or 6 years. But it's hard. It's just like on a visceral level. Like when Ronda Rousey got knocked out by Holly Holm, I did not like Ronda, but like even I was like, can we change the channel until the next fight starts? Like it's hard to watch the replay in slow motion and
Yeah.
And is that some antiquated, like old caveman drag, hey, me protect woman kind of thing coming out in us men? Is that what that is?
I think
probably a little bit.
I've heard some people interview on this very subject, and I thought the interviews came off wrong, meaning because I remember some, and I don't remember who, but I remember some guys, and they'd be like, I just can't watch that. And they would say like very black and white statements. Like one would be, I can't watch that, and I don't think women should fight, right? But I think, in my opinion, it was me looking into it, is I don't think that's what they meant, right? I think that a lot of men they look at themselves again, and it is antiquated, but it's kind of not, right? Like we're like a protector, right? And so, and that's why you look at, and same for girls. I think if they're looking at it, or women, they're looking at it differently. Like part of being safe, right? A part of the attractiveness of a man is knowing that they are your protector, right?
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a weird way, but that's part of the attraction, right? That's why they always like, you laugh, like, why do the bad guys always get the girls, right? Well, the bad guys are the tough guys and the guys that this, and that's attractive, right? The same thing, like we don't like, we want to protect women, so that's not protection when you look at a girl getting beat up, right? But then ultimately, us in the sport, that's why I don't think we like it. But then I would say like the best fights I've ever seen has been between women, right? And some of it,
absolutely,
yeah, and some of it is because, right, like, even this will sound bad, but sometimes they don't hit as hard as we do, right? So, which means they hit each other a lot more. Not by we, I mean like heavyweights, for example, right? That's why their heavyweights don't hold belts long, because if you take one good hit from a heavyweight, you're going to go out, right?
Right.
And so that goes back to the females. Like, it doesn't mean because they're weaker, they're just lighter, right? And their punches aren't as heavy-handed. So those fights they beat the crap out of each other. And so,
and I also think that women go into fights with a different mentality. Not that no man goes into a match willing to die, but I think some of them, there's crazy some bitches out there who are ready to die in a cage or die on the mat, and I'll let you snap my arm. I'm not saying that those guys don't exist, they do, but women, it seems to me, and we've been lucky enough to have a lot of women on this podcast, and a lot of them have kind of echoed the same thing. It's like they kind of fight for a different reason. It's not about pride. It's not about dominating another guy. When they go out and fight, they're fighting for life. And I see that in a lot of these women matches. You watch a UFC women's event, even if it's a lower grade, rough and rowdy women's event, you see those, and they're fighting for something different than what the guys are. It's not the same. Their motivation is not the same.
Yeah.
Because the money is not good enough for them to be in there. So they're fighting for something else. And I think it really is, like, it is, I'm fighting for my life. When I get out there, I want to kill this bitch.
Right.
And I've been lucky enough to be around some other female fighters and women. And when they talk about it, like when I go into a competition, man, I want to do everything I can to win, but I've never said I want to kill that guy. And there have been plenty of women who I've been around that go into competition. They're like, I'm going to choke this bitch to death. That's what I want to do.
Oh, right.
So
one thing about what we were saying a second ago about like how guys view it, because I would say what you were saying about them, they were like, I don't think women should fight, is I'm like, I hate to see it, but I definitely think women should fight. It's just, it's not like, it's not what I'm particularly wanting to see for me, but I love that it's out there happening. I think another part of it too is like why I think some men feel that way is like, you start to put yourself, like, you start to thinking about like, you know, your sisters, your girlfriend or wives, your daughters. And especially for those of us who've been through it, it's not just like, oh, I don't think you're tough enough to go out there and fight. It's like that, it fucking sucks to be a fighter. It is not a glamorous life. It's not fun when you're out there getting punched in the head. A lot of times you're dehydrated. There's like damage going on that you don't even know about. The emotional side of it, like, man, getting ready for a fight is, it's a roller coaster of emotion. It's not always great. You know what I mean? And it's just like we see these women fighters on TV, and even though that's not our loved ones, we can't help to kind of like see them in that position and then be like, man, it would be hard to see, you know, my girlfriend in there getting like just laid into, you know, ground and pound. It's like, it's hard to see.
Well,
Hard
yeah,
to see.
it comes from a
Women-
place of love, right? It really
Right.
Yeah, women and children first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
we were supposed to let them on the boats first. We're supposed to hold the door. I still hold the door for my wife.
Yeah.
I open up the car door. I close the car door. Why? Because that's my job. I'm the protector. She walks on the inside. I walk on the street side.
Yeah.
I don't do
right.
that. I don't do that because I think of myself as better. I do that because I am not as important as her.
I know. That's
Right.
why it makes me mad when somebody's like, I can hold my own door. I'm like, well, no shit. Nobody said you couldn't. This is
Yeah.
a thing of politeness. I hold the door for men too. They can hold it. Like it's just
Right.
love and caring. Right.
But and that's the thing is like I've never done any of that because I thought I was better than the person. I don't open the door because I think I'm better than you. I don't walk on the outside of the street because I think I'm better than you. I don't pay for dinner on a first date because I think I'm better than you. I do that because you are more important than me.
yeah.
That's
Which
why I do that. That's
ultimate
what,
sign of respect. That's why people need to really like before they slam you and people do, not everybody, right? But that's, you know, which happened. This hopefully this simple conversation, right? Now maybe somebody will know. You know, I get it for being all about women's right and feminism, right? But that's the point. Like it's not, I'm not trying to say you're less, just like Gary said, it's not saying you're lesser. You're actually more valuable. I'm saying I will give up. Like it's funny because my wife doesn't, she's seen the memes lately about like they'll say, you know, show two people walking, the guy on the side of the street, and they'll say, for those that know, and she'll be like, I don't even know what this means. And I'm like, well, yeah, because this happens all the time. I'm glad that you don't know, but this means I'm going to give up my life so that I get hit by a car and you don't. And they're like, she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. It's just a thing that we do that maybe you don't even know about,
Right.
do like, and I've seen, you know, I've actually seen some stuff on video where that actually worked out, not where the guy died, but like, you know, that it all kind of worked out, but it's not a position of saying I'm better, greater. It's actually the opposite. It's saying that, you know, I care so much about you that I'm willing to give up my life. Now, you know,
Right.
like getting struck by lightning. It's not probably going to happen, but that's an ultimate sign of respect. Like saying, hey, like I'm putting this out there for you in that way. Like I understand both sides of it. It's always, but I hate when people are the other side. They just argue like right off the bat. Like I've literally had, I also get mad, just so you know, like when I hold the door for somebody and they don't say thank you, I almost want to throw them back through the door and shut it right back up.
Yeah.
grab them and pull them back and then walk in front of them.
Just say that, because it's like they know I did that, you know what I mean? They know. And that actually happens more than somebody, and you know what I mean? Like, because I go in a gas station, I just hold the door. It could be a guy or girl. Like if you're like within 3 foot from me, I'm gonna hold the door for you. If you walk through the door and don't acknowledge me, man, it is every being in my body wants to choke you unconscious at that point right there. Just
Right.
acknowledge the thing, like thanks, right? I do the same. I say thank you. Like it doesn't mean that I needed you to. Doesn't mean that I'm lesser or greater. I'm like, I appreciate that you're a good human. That's all I'm trying. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Just say
like
thank
I
you.
need the thank you, but I also don't need the freaking nonsense. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But
Right.
anyway, yeah, sorry. Like, but I'm
Big
glad.
tangent back to the strip clubs. We got to turn this back around. I say, so you get done working at the strip clubs and ladies are beating the shit out of other ladies for taking their money.
Yeah. I mean,
You're
that was
like,
most of it, to be honest. That was the majority of working up there. And then so then I stopped working up there. I worked at Speedway for a minute, just some night shifts, that way I could train all day. And then towards the end of that lease, I just packed up and moved back to West Virginia and was training at Ground Zero. And I was there for, I don't know, a couple years. I'd gotten close to, my brown belt. I had 4 stripes in my belt, and then I moved, and you know how it is with, you move from one school to another, and now it's like you gotta, all the work you did, nobody saw it from this gym, so like you're back down to like the bottom rung. So it took me a while, and I finally, I get my brown belt from Ground Zero. After a while, just kind of start thinking it's time to like branch out, expand my style. So I head back up to Ohio, but at this point, instead of going to the SOS schools, like the JGMMA affiliates up there, I decided to go up to Queen City Grappling Club, which was Ruben's school. Started training up there, and honestly could not be more thankful that I did that. I tried out Robbie's school for a minute. Now it was all right, but just the vibe at Ruben's was best for me. Like Robbie's got a really nice school, good program. You guys, I'm talking about Robbie Maloff up there. He's got a real great program, real competitive, and even might have like worked better for me because I'm more gi oriented. You know what I mean? And he does a lot of gi up there. But the next day, the first day that I went up there, kind of looking around to see what I was going to do as far as affiliation change, I stopped at Robbie's. The next day I went to Ruben's and was immediately like, oh, this is unlike anything I've ever seen. I mean, the way that Ruben trains his guys, like his class structure, you actually feel like an athlete. I think a lot of people kind of like lean into the martial arts side. And so like, you might leave a class and you might get through a class, and until live rounds start, you might not actually sweat. You know what I mean? Your warm-ups will be lower tempo, and then drilling isn't the highest tempo, and then your exercise will start at the end of class. With Ruben, it felt like I had like jumped into like, if there was a high school jiu-jitsu team where they were doing like daily conditioning at the beginning of classes and like repetitive drills, to where I jumped in and was like, oh, this is like transferring schools in the middle of basketball season and trying to figure out how you guys run things. But so you was training up there for a while.
Do you describe that structure though? Because I'm always interested in that. I love to hear like everybody's training style. Do you care?
No, absolutely. So like
Ruben doesn't care too, but I mean, just because I love to hear how other people train people, and obviously like if, things that I like to, I try to borrow or steal from people, right? Like I love it because I love we all come from a different background, man, and I just
right
I like to hear what they do,
So Ruben's, it was he has different drills that he cycles through, but and this is when I was first talking to him before I even came up there. I was asking him some advice for the class that I was teaching at Ground Zero. This is before I ever split off to do my own thing. I'd reached out to him like, man, how do you teach your classes? And he was like, you start with drilling. I don't do any warm-ups. He's like, we move around a minute and then we get right into active drilling. So like his gym, he had like a wall with 2 openings, but they'd start by jogging around the center, do some like in and outs, some shuffles, butt kicks, high knees. And then what he would do is you would be doing like kangaroo hops, sprint around, and then you would do Russian steps. Do you know what that is? So like a continuous shot where you never actually come up into your stance. So we would do a few of those, and then we would do sprints. So, and that would only take, we're talking like 5-7 minutes. And then immediately he sets a 3-minute timer, and it's wrestle back and forth, back and forth. That was one thing interesting too. Like his guys all kind of had a wrestling background, or at least enough of them did to where they could split up. And he didn't have to be around the room, like stopping the clock to explain things very often. It was a good spread of experience. So it'd be 3 minutes of just active wrestling. Then 3 minutes of shot, sprawl, take the back. Shot, sprawl, front headlock. and then it would be like snap down to the front headlock, sprawl, finish the front choke, go around, take take the back. And it was all just very like basic stuff. And then there would be like go for a single leg, they hide the leg, you shoot in for ashigarami. Just a lot of very like basic drills, but that were very centered around situations you actually find yourself in jiu-jitsu. Like
I'm going to interrupt just for a second, because because it hit on something I was talking about the other night. You go to any wrestling gym, it doesn't matter if it's a high school, if it's a club, whatever it is, the first 20 minutes of practice is doing all the stuff that you've done a million times. It is double legs, single legs, wrestling shots, shoot in, sprawl, take the back, shoot in, sprawl, guy on bottom recovers, elbow over, go into a single, lift the single, and it is that nonstop. And I've had guys that come to me as white belts like, man, I really need to work on my stand-up. And I ask him, and this is the hard thing about tying it into jiu-jitsu, and I like the way that he's doing it, but it's the hard thing about tying it into jiu-jitsu is like, I wish I had the time for an hour class to have the first 20 minutes to just be wrestling.
Right.
And it's hard because I know everybody, and anybody who says different is a fucking liar. We all show up to jiu-jitsu to get through the first 30 minutes, 40 minutes, so we can roll at the end.
Yeah.
Every single one of us do it. Nobody wants to drill. Nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to be there to get to do the repetitions. We all show up to get through class. I want to, coach is teaching the elbow escape from mount. I'm mounted. I elbow escape or I trap and roll. And now we've done 30. We did the 10-minute warm up, the 20 minutes of instruction, 30 minutes of instruction. And the last part of it is the rolling. And that's why I'm here. I want to roll.
Right.
And it's not like that in wrestling. You go to a wrestling class and it is do the same stupid shit you've been doing since you were 7 years old.
Exactly. Over and over and over again.
Every single class. And people ask, like, how do I get good at this drop step? Do 12,000 more of them is how you get good at it. I don't know how else to say it other than, and we kind of talked about it a little bit on this. My guys at my gym are probably sick of me saying it. Like, why do you come to open mat and you don't drill anything?
Yeah, true. Very true.
Yeah.
Why do people come to open mat? It is open mat. It is open for you to work on what you want to work on or get some sparring. And everybody chooses sparring. Every single person comes in and spars. Nobody drills anything. I've never been to an open mat where somebody stood up and said, I want, hey, and that was the big difference between me and a lot of people. If I got any better at jiu-jitsu over anybody that I trained with, it was because I did one thing that nobody else did. And I would say, hey, we've got a 5-minute round. Do you mind? Nate, I see you there. We're going to clap hands. Can I, for the first 2 minutes and 30 seconds of our round together, can I drill this pass that I need to work on? Now, you would be an asshole if you said, nah, man, you can't do that.
Right.
So and listen, I use that to my advantage. I would know that you were going to say yes. And so I would do that. And then for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I would drill this new pass. And you would let me drill this new pass. And then at the end of that 2 minutes, 30 seconds, I would say, hey, Nate, do you want to drill a move or do you want to roll? And what would you say?
Probably drill a move.
Maybe you would. Most people
want to roll.
Most people would say, let's roll for this last, because nobody wants to do leg drags for 2.5 minutes.
Right.
Nobody does. And it was the only thing that, if there was anything that I did in jiu-jitsu that made me better than the people that surrounded me, it was that. I took advantage of the fact that I knew that they wanted to roll. And I could sneak 2 minutes and 30 seconds of drilling in when they didn't want to do it. And so I would just do leg drags when they didn't want to do leg drags. And I knew that after that 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I was watching the clock. I knew that at 2:30, they would want to roll for the next 2:30. And so I got all of the added benefit of drilling in still 2 minutes and 30 seconds of rolling.
That's legit. That's a good idea. I'm going to steal that.
Dude, and it never failed. It never failed. There was only one training partner that I had in all of jiu-jitsu that if I asked them, can I drill for the first half of the round, and then you can the second half of the round you can drill, or we can just roll, whatever your choice is. There was only one guy, and his name was Justin Kendrick, and he still trains at one in Athens, Ohio. And the dude, every time, he was like, I'm not going to let you get extra reps in and not get my own reps in. So I would drill my move that I wanted to work for 2.5 minutes, and then he would drill his move for 2.5 minutes. And it's not surprising that we were two of the best guys at that academy.
Right. It makes all the difference. I mean, it's like, they have that quote by Bruce Lee, the like 10,000 kicks one time, one kick 10,000 times. But it's legit. I mean, like there have been, for me, it's the X pass. Anytime I start getting like back into a drilling habit, I always start with the X pass. And it's probably been 5 or 6 times over the course of my jiu-jitsu career. I've gone straight Rain Man and done nothing but drill X pass until I hit like 1,500 reps. And I'm like, all right, now I can move on to something else. I couldn't tell you how many times I've done an X pass. I could do it in my sleep. And now it's like, oh, I can explain how to do an X pass. I can see it. I can see an X pass in half guard, in all these different positions. I don't have to be standing outside of an open guard, because I'm like, oh, I know exactly where my body needs to be to hit this. And there's a few other moves like that to where it's like, those become your bread and butter, to where like, man, you're going to have to be really good at stopping specifically this. If you're going to, it's not just going to be like, you better have good guard retention. You better have really good guard retention for the exact pass that I'm doing, or else you're like jack of all trades retention. It's not gonna cut it. But back to the drilling, one other drill that you guys might check out, trying. He did it after one of the guys that would train up there sometimes, a guy named Evan DeWitt, had a big match in the PGF. He got to the overtime, and Evan's a great friend of mine, like solid grappler. He made a small lapse in like technical judgment in the overtime. He secured a takedown, and he didn't really like settle in on the guy, so he didn't get his points. And then the guy came back and won later in the overtime. But that inspired Ruben to start doing a drill that he called 3-second goes. So imagine like one person starts in like a single leg, no real resistance at this point from the person being taken down. And then once I set you down, from the second your back hits the ground, you have 3 seconds to get me off of you and start trying to get up, get your knees underneath of you, start trying to build up to some kind of a base that wouldn't be takedown points. And I have 3 seconds to try to keep you from doing that and settle in some way that I would secure me my takedown points after that 3 seconds. So that's a real good drill. That's like, it's high intensity. That's a real good one. But all of these drills, like you were saying, these were the things that his guys were doing over and over again. So there was no instruction, which was baffling for me. Luckily, I kept having, as a brown belt, people wanted to train with me. So like, they were very patient to be like, do this. And it's not like I hadn't done any wrestling. So even I could repeat the same one over and over again. But people wanted to train with me, so they explained it to me much easier. And so like his first, 20, 25 minutes of these drills, there's no instruction. He's just, do this and telling us whether it's back and forth or 2 and 2 or one person for the full 3 minutes. And then at the end of that, he'll let us get a drink. Then we come back on the mat for the actual technique. So he does the technique, he'll teach it. And then one thing that I like about the way he does his classes is when he gets into the technique, he'll set a timer, and it's not back and forth. Because I'm sure you guys have seen classes you teach, and like, you'll get guys that'll do it 3 or 4 times, probably only on one side, and then they switch. The other guy does the same thing, and then they're done. They're just kind of like,
start looking at you, right? Yeah.
And it's like, oh, are you a master?
They do it 3 times. They do it 3 times, and then they start talking.
Yeah.
And they wait until you come around. And that's a big thing, right? Like, as an instructor, I want to make sure that everybody's doing it right. So if I've got group A through F, right? Then 2 guys here, 2 guys there. And so I go to group A. I know by the time I get to group D that they've already done it 3 times each, and then they stand there and they talk. Now, what they should be doing is, I talk to group A, I watch both of those guys do it. They're good. I go to group B. Group A should continue to train.
Exactly.
I go to
Exactly.
Group B does it. I go to Group C. I get to D, and they've been standing there watching me with Group C. And it really is one of the more frustrating things as a coach is like, and I don't want you to do it wrong, but I want you to be actively thinking about it as you do it. Like, okay, the coach, if I'm doing a scissor sweep, he talked about how my hip should be, where my knee placement is on the chest,
Yeah.
where my foot is on the hip. As I pull the elbow. I don't just like turn, I pull the elbow and lengthen them out. I kick over the top. I want all of that kind of in their head as they're doing it, and just keep doing it until I get there. If you're doing it wrong, I can fix it when I get there. Right. And I'll ask you, why do you think it went wrong? And that's another thing. It's another part of my teaching. I don't know if any other instructors do this, but like when somebody does something wrong, I'll ask them first, like, why do you think you're running into a wall here? Like, stop and think about this position and think about why it's not working. And if they think about it, a lot of times they figure it out. And if not, I can kind of coach them through it. But it's because you were trying to go too fast and you were trying to go too hard and you wanted to impress me. And I'm not impressed by anything you do because you're a white belt.
Right.
It doesn't mean I don't love you.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean I don't love you, but I'm not impressed by anything you do because you don't know anything.
Yeah, it's like the best that you've got, right? It's like I got one guy, I won't say any names, he'll know exactly who I'm talking about. But I got one guy that's like super committed, but he also is very like he wants that, like he wants me to see that he's doing good. And it's like and he really is, he's picking up, like for somebody who's coming in with no experience, he broke his thumb the first week he trained and hasn't missed a session still. Broke his thumb and dislocated his elbow in the same day, and was like, yeah, I'll be in tomorrow. They reset my elbow and my thumb didn't need a cast, so I'll be there. And I'm like, all right, my man, like, do you feel like you got like nerve problems? But yeah, sometimes I want to be like, listen, man, the best that you have is not going to be like, it's not going to be good enough for like if you wanted like a wholehearted, like, dude, that was sick. It's just not coming right now, buddy. Like you're getting pats in the back like a little brother for a minute. But that's the other thing that we were talking about too. Every day I can see like, oh, you're getting a little closer. We'll do our positional sparring, and it'll be like this guy from the very first start, he really had an affinity for leg locks. So he's been doing a lot of privates, and we've worked on a lot of like defensive stuff. And because I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of white belts lose to straight ankle locks in tournaments. So I was like, let's start there so that you can't get submitted. And by God, like when I'm playing by his competition rule set and I can't do any reaping, it's pretty damn hard to get him in a straight ankle lock, and that's coming from me. Yeah, you know what I mean? So I'm like, this is nice. This is nice. Now I've like, the closer you get to this, I can't put you in like cross ashi, because then you're gonna be like, I don't have a clue what's going on. But now I have somebody that I can work my straight ashi grami game with. I can get better at this and then teach you better along the way. So it's interesting, like seeing how it's like you're not like they're not there, but it's also like if you really work with them and if they're focused, they can get there a lot quicker than I think for a long time upper belts wanted to like admit. Because I think there was a lot of like gatekeeping of like, you got to like learn all this, and it's like you probably don't. Just like we were talking about with the wrestling, it's like you probably just need to get really fluent at like 3 or 4 sweeps, 3 or 4 submissions, 3 or 4 chokes, 3 or 4 passes. And if you actually drill those consistently over the course of a year, you're probably ready for blue belt. Like if you actually done those and then like done them live in training, and you have a good idea for like, how people react to that at your level of competition, I don't think you need to, you want exposure to all the things you're going to come across, but you don't have to know 50 different chokes.
Listen, Jordan Burroughs has an amazing blast double.
Yes.
He lived on that shit for ages, right?
Right.
Everybody knew what he was going to do, and he did it. It's the same thing with Marcelo Garcia. What was Marcelo Garcia going to do? He wasn't going to surprise anybody. He was going to go arm drag X guard. And from X guard, he was going to go single X, and he was going to use that to take your back. All of that was to set up either the Marcellitine or he was going to take your back and choke the shit out of you from there. No, it wasn't a secret. Everybody knew his game and he did it anyway. It's just because he got so good at that. And so I kind of echo that, what you said. And you know, Butch I've seen it on the whiteboard a lot. And I even wrote it on my whiteboards because I seen it at Butch's. And I was like, that's smart shit. I'm going to take it with me. It's like, hey, do you have 2 or 3 moves from every position? You have 2 or 3 moves. If you're in bottom side control, do you have 2 things that you can do? If you're mounted, do you have 2 or 3 things that you can do? If you're in top side, do you have 2 or 3 things that you can do? Because if you don't,
then you're stuck when you get there.
Then you've got a position where you suck. You probably got to work on that, right? And I really, as an instructor, I really can't give you a blue belt until you at least have an answer for these positions.
Right. Yo, let me go grab my phone real quick. I think my girlfriend's probably wondering.
She's like, you've been on there for 2 hours with those guys.
Wondering if she can come in. I think she thinks this is like a little more like official.
Nah, she can absolutely come in, and we'll ask her all of the woes of being the gym girlfriend.
Man, there are plenty. She's been such a huge help. Like everything, you know, coming together. She's been such a huge help with it that I probably couldn't have done it without her. But let me go grab this phone real quick. I'll be right back.
Well, so when she comes in, Gary, this will kind of give us a good segue. I believe she helps him with his new venture, which is the soap that's like defense soap,
absolutely, right? Absolutely.
So this is going to be a perfect.
He actually needs to be here to talk about the soap. So
yeah. So do you use anything like that, or you know?
So right now I make sure that like whatever soap that I'm using has tea tree oil in it.
Yeah. Okay. You know,
it's the thing that I look for most, and sometimes it is something like defense soap. Sometimes I go to farmers markets and I find, whether it be bar soap or whatever, I find something that has tea tree oil. But I'm always using. I think tea tree oil for me is the thing that I found that has made the biggest difference. And I've had ringworm 3 times since starting jujitsu, and since I started using tea tree oil soaps, I've not had ringworm at all.
Yeah, and I think that I just get, so there was a time, like I don't get it very often, and usually I make the joke that if I catch it, then we've got a problem, right? So because it could happen. Like I had through the years, I've had a few guys that were just prone to ringworm, right? Like, so meaning that nobody, like for example, right now I cannot tell you the last time somebody had ringworm. I literally can't. But I know back when this one guy was there, like it seemed like every time he got a haircut or shaved, he'd get ringworm, because it's like those pores must have been open, and so he would get them on his hairline. He'd get them, like I said, where he shaved. It was just constant. And then of course, if he got it, then it did spread a little bit around, but I would still never get it. It was just like, it was a thing. And so we kind of made a joke, is like, if I get it, then there's a problem. But at that time, I had almost always exclusively used like Head and Shoulders shampoo, which has, I don't know if it has tea tree oil in it, but it has some kind of something that is in the same thing. Because I remember when I looked it up, I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. Because I don't know what it was, but I was like, I'm inadvertently using it, and I didn't even know. Right.
And Nate can kind of comment on this. We're kind of talking about, we're segueing into the soap idea, right?
Yeah.
But I think there are a couple things, that maybe 3 things that kind of attribute to ringworm or other things, staph infection, all that kind of thing. And I think the first one is, are you washing your gi? And people, and when I say gi, also your belt.
Yeah.
Because I think there's this lore that there's some sort of magic sweat property to your belt, and if you wash it, then you lose it. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that stuff. You got to wash it all. Yeah, I've never. If that was the case, then why are no-gi guys so good?
Yeah, no, it's nonsense. But you know, it's funny, for all those guys that are looking to look like you do jiu-jitsu a lot, you should wash your belt, because then you get the raggedy belt. Yes, exactly. So like we had a guy at the gym that man, he could have his belt for a month and it looked like he tied it to his bumper and drove it around town for a year, right? Like, so I don't know if he's just washing the shit with rocks or something, but
Right.
it was guaranteed. It was funny. Now my black belt looks pristine, right? And two things: I don't wash the thing, not because I don't believe in that. I just never take it home, so it's gross. But the other thing is to counter that, I don't wear it because I'm a weirdo. Like I've got this thing in my mind, which is stupid, that like I just never like to put myself ahead of other people. So I'll put like if some new people come in, like let's say this is some guy's new class and his girlfriend's new class and they came, I'll put my black belt on because I feel like they expect that. But like once it falls off, I don't put it back on. I don't really care. So 9 times out of 10, I don't ever have my belt on. Like I like usually like if I can like for today we had open mat. I just walk in, I put my gi on. I don't even grab my belt. I just don't care. Everybody knows I'm a black belt, so I don't care. It's gonna fall off and I'm not gonna put it back on. So like it doesn't move. So I'm the weirdo, right? But I also feel like you should wear it because there's like the traditional thing, like we should have it on, and I get it. I'm so I don't know why I'm like that. I'm just so stuck. Like I don't call anybody my student. I don't call not, you know what I mean? Like because I just
Well, and me,
stuck on
Butch, me and you have this, like it bugs me. Like I've got some students that come from more traditional background, and I shouldn't say it bugs me, but it is weird when they call me professor.
yeah, yeah.
Like that stuff is weird to me, and that's just I don't mind academies that do that. I don't mind that the academies that bow and do all of the traditional stuff. I kind of appreciate that. I think it's beautiful when it's done, but it's just not my style.
Yeah.
When somebody comes to me and calls me a professor, I'm like, dude, I'm just Gary.
Yes.
Like
yeah.
my daily job is killing bugs, man. That's what I do for a living. Like, and for you to come in and be like Master Hashman, like I don't need that. I don't need all
Right.
that stuff. I'm just if you want to call me coach, I appreciate that. And I will accept professor, but like yeah, I've been doing this for over a decade now, but like I'm just Gary. I don't need all the pomp and circumstance that comes with the idea of, hey, we're gonna go and protect the emperor. So we need
Bro,
to
I'm getting a picture of myself sat on my knees with a samurai sword to put up on the wall behind me.
Dude, you got the top knot for it.
Right?
I'm just saying.
Oh, we're going full martial arts cult down here at Jewel City Grappling Club. I mean, it's gonna be a problem. We're gonna be like Cobra Kai. No, I'm joking, not really.
If you did, I'm still okay with it. It's just
No, I am thinking about we're thinking about making a like a new, we've got a TikTok for Jewel City Grappling Club, but I've come up with a like a persona kind of like Master Ken, and I think we're gonna start making some like parody videos with like just the worst technical advice you could ever imagine. That's always like shockingly bad. I'm gonna have like my belt tied around my forehead instead of on my waist.
You know, it's funny. Real quick is there's a video, and I don't know because I don't think I've even watched the video, but Ground Zero Morgantown made a video like making fun of like the death touch, and every now and then that thing appears where people think it's real. Like
really.
Yeah,
was it Fowler? Is that who did it?
You know, that's the thing. I've never watched it, but I just know because every now and then they'll post it and like say, "Oh my god!" Like somebody's made it might have even made like McDojo, but it's like basically they're knocking people down with the Jedi Force and like people are trying to tackle people and they're flying off them. It's a complete joke, but it's every now and then somebody acts like it's real.
Well,
it's wild that there are schools like that though.
Well, now that we're talking about it, I want to say it now. I'm putting this out there in the metaverse or whatever the hell this is, that I am undefeated in no touch fighting.
I like the paw. You're like I don't know what to call it.
I'm undefeated. No one has ever cheated me into submission.
Yeah.
It's never happened. And I am willing to bet every one of these medals behind me and these belts to anyone who can no touch knockout me. If you can do that, all of this is yours. I will call you master. I will train underneath you. I will leave you, Butch. I love you. But if somebody can no touch knockout me, I like everything.
I'm done with jujitsu.
That's it. I'm done.
Yeah.
With it.
So ironically, or coincidentally, one of the two, right? Stefan is the one that put the kibosh on that, right? Stefan Bonner, where George Dillman,
yes.
Where he walked into his school in Chicago and couldn't do it to Stefan. Then he didn't he say, well, that's because he's an athlete, or his tongue was on his upper.
George Zillman said, well, he could have lifted one big toe, and then if he switched them, it wouldn't. He switched his big toes, and then that could change it.
So, have you guys seen the one with the group that does the like running on the beach?
No.
Oh, Butch, you gotta look this up later. So like,
it's funny is I'm not gonna steal it.
I
just know what happens. I'm like a fucking I don't watch any of these, so I'm gonna have to start watching these things.
I'm not gonna steal it from you, Nathan. I want you to take this. Dude, that lady and that guy, and it's the best thing I've ever watched in all of the things that I've ever seen.
Is it
Nathan,
on YouTube?
please take it.
Where can I see this? You can probably look it up right now. Just put like Chi run into woman.
She run into okay.
Chi run into woman.
Please describe
it to me while I'm looking it up.
So this guy's like teaching these people how to like exude energy and stop somebody if they were like running full force at him. And so she does it with the instructor first. And obviously he runs and like a couple feet away, he like stops and hits the ground and like has his little fake seizure. You know, I'm sure you've seen these videos where they like pretend like they've been chi blasted. Well, so then he sets her up and some like, this is it. This is it. Yeah. All right. So I'm not going to ruin the ending. So now you know what's going on.
No, I'm going to turn it up so that it actually takes.
So that was the instructor pretending to like respond to her chi.
Okay, all right. So
and now here in just a second, he's gonna line
laying
up
on the ground.
Yeah, he's acting like he like
that was just a student of the master.
Okay.
And that's the lady right there. She's getting ready to use her chi.
Okay, here we go. Let's make sure.
But she's using it against this random dude who is not part of
martial artist.
He's just either some kind of martial artist.
This lady has been training for the last six weeks. She's really into this.
There we go.
Right there is her instructor. He's getting her ready. He's centering her. She's getting centered. Everything is now. She's breathing deep. You know, she's got, listen, she's 53. She's got 2 kids in college, right? And she is ready. She's centering herself.
Who's this other girl?
In the well, I mean, she's the helper, but she's bringing in the good energy. The good energy is now here. She's ready.
Oh,
bam!
She's supposed to. Was she supposed to stop the guy? Like,
yeah, her chi was supposed. And now look at him acting like there's some kind of like chi imbalance. Like he's just trying to not get sued because he just pile drive this soccer mom. It's terrible.
All right, the moaning sounds like a different kind of video. All right, so for anyone that's not seeing this, just look up woman running into chi, because it only is going to show when I'm on the microphone, but like now there's people having seizures. Well, I'm going to take it off because
yeah,
that's good. There we go.
It's just wild. Like she probably paid him money to learn how to do that too.
She paid him money to learn how to get run into.
If I let the video keep playing, my wife and kids would come up here because she was like, like it's not good. Like,
right.
Yeah, they're like, what's and oddly enough, my kids I don't know what they've been watching, but they're 5 or no, I don't know how they're 7 and 10. I'm just guessing, but their new thing is going, oh, daddy, like
Gotta love that.
They got reprimanded at school that they can no longer be moaning, and they ask them what happens at their house, and I'm like, believe me, not that. I wish that happened. That's just
Right.
Okay, we kind of went on a venture of chi, but let's
Yeah.
talk about shit that really works, which is tea tree oil.
Right. Yeah, so we're starting to make soaps. We've just made samples so far, but they're turning out really well. Alyssa is making like a bunch of, she's got like heart molds and stuff like that. And she's doing like fragrances and trying out all these different, recipes and stuff. I'm kind of sticking basic, kind of like if you guys or anybody who's listening has tried Defense soap. It's just a real like, it's like dial soap. It's not got a lot of scent to it other than just like the chemicals that are in there to get you clean. Got the basic one, has some honey in it and tea tree oil. It's like a goat milk base. And then the other one is the same thing, only it's got some oats in it to like exfoliate as you use it. This one's one of my favorites. And I think soon we're going to start actually doing it with some coffee grounds. Because I've seen things before about like soaps that are kind of like caffeine infused. So I'm going to play around with that a little bit, see what we can do as far as like, anything that with caffeine. We're also looking at a couple different bases instead of the goat milk. So we're about to look at forget the second one, but they got like a hemp oil based one. So I'm going to try that one, see if there's anything to do with like CBD oil. Yeah, just playing around with it a little bit. Thought it was a good idea. It's something that like, you need, like we were talking about with the belts, like we can't be walking around all funky, like giving each other ringworm all the time. So, years ago I had to start training with Defense soap. Now I'm making it myself, which is, a lot, well, I don't know about easier, but it's cheaper. I'm hoping to be able to turn it into a little bit of a business, help keep the school afloat, but they work really well. I prefer the oats, so I'm really excited to see what the coffee grounds are going to be like. But it works really well.
Real quick question: does the oats have the tea tree oil in it as well?
Yeah. So it's so the oats would be the goat milk, the honey, the tea tree oil. I just added oats into it for the exfoliant.
Okay.
But yeah, it's still got this.
And we kind of talked about it beforehand. I swear by tea tree oil.
Right.
Since I've started using tea tree oil soaps, I've not had any ringworm.
Same.
So
Same.
And like no jock itch, no ringworm, no staph infection, like all of that stuff hasn't. And I like kind of goes back to what we were saying. Like I think you need to, hey, you got to wash your gi and belt. You have to use a good soap. If you don't use a good soap, you're gonna get it. And then you have to like not. And this is the big one. Not just your gi and your belt, but any other equipment that touches that stuff. So your gi, like your gi bag, if you have a jiu-jitsu bag, you have to wash that stuff. And I don't think people spend enough time washing all the other stuff that their gi touches. If you wash your gi and then throw it back into the bag that you had your sweaty gi in, it's gonna start to harbor fungus and whatnot. Yeah, it's contaminated.
Well, even your hair. A lot of people don't like when I've had short hair, I typically just wash my hair with the same bar of soap until it gets long enough to like need to use conditioner, and then I'll switch over to regular shampoo. But like, my hair, like that's one thing we're about to start working on is like making some shampoos like for training that have some tea tree oil in it. And with that, we'll get more into like some scents, because usually people want some kind of scent with their shampoo. But I mean, even these, they smell clean, really clean. It's not like you just put on deodorant. If people want to smell like something like that, then they'll need to just go get some cologne or deodorant. But if you're looking to like get out of the shower feeling sterile, like you're not about to drag any of your mat funk into the bedroom onto your sheets, like we're gonna have like some really good stuff. And if anybody wants to hit me up on Facebook, like anybody with a school, I can send out a few samples just to let you guys try it, and then we can talk about maybe sending you guys out some at whatever rate, then you can sell them. We'll figure out how that's working. Right now we're kind of just playing with the recipes. I'm getting some samples sent out, so like I'm gonna send some to you guys, send some to Ruben. I'm gonna send probably send a couple up to Chris McKinney, George Euler, Josh Fowler for sure. I'll hit him up and send up a few. Really just see how people like it. And then from there, gauge like, how did you like the scent? Like, are you cool with the sterile, the tea tree oil scent, or are people wanting to add some other scents in? Could even do like a, these are plain. We can add some dyes in to make them colored, that won't affect the body, won't like dye you red, but will color the soap. So I was thinking about even like a pool that wanted to, to stock some, I could make like a, a Butch Hiles specific scent, whatever you like the most. I'll make that like the Butch Hiles scent that you can have that, very specific scent in your gym kind of thing. And then also stock some of the other ones.
Well, I'm gonna campaign for you to make the Gary Hashman scent. It's donuts and bourbon. So
what is it?
Donuts and bourbon.
Well, I'll see what I can do, man. I'll see what I can do.
Well, and here's also what I said, like here to encourage you to get this business off the ground. Because I do think it's important. I just for my real job, I do medical device sales, and there's a company in West Virginia, and the doctor that I work with is really intent on working with that company because he wants to support West Virginia. And I feel the same, right?
Yeah.
So I will say this: if you get the company off the ground where you're getting everything rocking, then Gary and I will make it a sponsor without charging you, and we'll throw it on there because we'll support you. Like, I think it's important, right? Like Gary and I were just talking about this about 2 hours ago. My anniversary is on 369. For anybody, I don't know the title of this song, but that's from the windows to the walls, sweat my balls. Right. So if you can make us a 369,
I got you.
We will pump the shit out of that stuff, right?
I got you. Well, I'll send you these samples up, and then you can tell me what kind of like scent you want in yours, and then we'll because we're getting the for the basic ones. What I'm hoping to do, because these are just the this is actually a mold from like cubes for ice cubes that we just used for this, but we have like some rectangle molds coming in. What I'd like to do is actually get a mold to put in that says Grappling Club, like Fight Club. Exactly. Not for the ones for every person, like for yours. I'll do the 369. That's the Butch Hiles bar. We'll figure out something for Gary that I can put on there. But
no.
For
just
ours,
make mine. I just want the Butch Hiles bar.
All right.
Yeah, because we can do this. We can be like right here. You can be my soap and be like, here I am. 369. When sweat drips off my balls, this is what I use.
Right.
So like,
there we go.
We'll bring it home. And I can imagine the preamble to the podcast, whether it's Gary or I, like getting all serious, just like early Joe Rogan with the fleshlight. When I masturbate, I like to use the fleshlight, right?
Right.
When my balls are sweating, I like to use this one, right? We'll think of something. It'll be perfect.
Also, like I said, Alyssa's making some of the like the more feminine stuff. I'm gonna send a couple of those bars for Lisa to try out, because I know she's got her fingers in all kinds of like pies as far as like the different fitness stuff she does.
Yeah.
Would tea tree oil be something that she would want, or would she rather just have one that's like I don't know how often she's like touching people to like need.
It's funny you say that, because she won't do jujitsu because she doesn't want to touch people, but
she's more rose petals.
Yeah, rose petals. That's actually one thing that Alyssa's doing with it, is she made a soap that's got some rose petals in it.
Yeah. Well, and we're not joking. I'm here. I mean, I think that's the thing. A part of friendship is supporting each other, right? If you're on here supporting us, we're going to support you. So let's take this to the next step. And that's the important thing. Like, I think like there's options out there. We could use defense soap. It's a good thing, right?
Right.
But if you're making the same product and it's available locally here, and it's
right,
something here, why would we not use that? Right.
I know, I'd appreciate it. And I really appreciate you guys putting me on like that. We'll like I said, we're playing around with a couple more recipes, but I'll send those samples out to you, and you can check them out, see how you like them. And then we'll just go from there.
No, I think it's awesome. So one last thing I would like to say, not meaning last thing, but I think
Yeah.
that's so if, and Gary, you know, if you had something else you want to say, but here's what I'm thinking. Like because Gary looks like he wants to watch some football. I've been watching him turn around.
He says that. Now listen, I'm a 49ers fan, and I am glancing over. It's halftime now, so we're good.
Didn't
I
that
just
guy,
I gotta be
I have one.
extra point, Gary? I have not. He missed another extra point.
He did, and it is 9-6 right now.
I feel like I want to give that guy a hug.
I'm happy right now. I can't say that I'm upset.
But
I wish we were scoring touchdowns, not field goals. And so, it's I promise that I am listening to you guys. The volume is obviously completely down. I am checking to make sure like my shit's happening over there the way I want it to happen.
I'm clearly watching it too. It's okay. It's fine. But if somebody wanted to join your gym, Nathan,
yeah,
what should they expect, and how do they do that, and all that good stuff?
Well, I mean, they should. So, if somebody wanted to come down, they should expect it to be both competition oriented, but also fairly oriented for beginners. Okay. Most of my guys are newer, so can't go at the same pace that Ruben goes up at Queen City, because there is a lot more like slowing down to explain things. But when we drill, we do drill. I try to keep them drilling. Instead of like back and forth, I set a timer, and it's like, this is your 3 minutes. Do not switch until you hear the timer. So I try to keep people like moving well, actually like I know how much time, whether they got enough reps in, that's up to them. But I know how much time each of my students had dedicated to each part of the technique we're learning. If you come in, my thing, especially right now, I'm kind of experimenting with trying to teach from the feet to the floor instead of from the ground up. So a lot of people, I think, come into jiu-jitsu and like their first few months, they spend on their back, whether it be in their training or in their live rounds. They're spending most of their time either on their back or on top of somebody, but still down in that position, with no real context of how a live round would go from the feet to that position they're working on. So every class, we're either working on pommeling or snap downs. We'll work some shot variations, do a lot of like standing passing, as opposed to like get down on the ground and stay down there. Got a really good pass and recover drill that I got from Jason Butcher that I do at least 3 or 4 days a week across my different classes. That you see, like we were talking about, you stick with these basic things by keeping that like as a staple. I've got a guy who's been there to 3 classes, and the last time we did it, he's doing it almost as well as the guys who have been there for 2 or 3 weeks, because it was literally like, all right, guys, we have how many do we have? We have 4 people on the mat. So we're all getting 3 minutes on top and bottom of this guard. It's a pass and recover drill. So everybody's getting 18 minutes total. Is that right? Yeah, that'd be right. 18 minutes total of this drill before we move on. So you're getting 9 minutes back and forth. That's another thing that I try to like get across to everybody is this is a quote from a guy. We were talking about Marcelo earlier. You guys ever heard of Dustin Dennis? They call him Clean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds familiar.
So he has a relative in West Virginia, oddly enough.
What is it?
He has a relative in West Virginia.
Really? I didn't know that. I got to train under him some in Ohio.
Might also be lying. So, but I'm pretty sure he does. I'm almost positive.
Well, I got to train under him up in Ohio, and he was one of the most intense people I've ever trained under. But Gary, for you, he actually beat Marcelo in the Brazilian National Championship in 2001. It's on YouTube if you ever want to look at it. He basically gets on Marcelo's back with the body triangle and is just so aggressively hounding him that it kind of looks like at some point Marcelo just kind of lifts the chin to give it. It's a savage round. But one of Clean's things that he says is you shouldn't have a good side and a bad side. You should have a good side and a great side. So like anytime I'm having people drill, it's like you can get 5 on this side and then 5 on that side. Now you got it. It should be back and forth. Like we're not going to be not developing skills only on one side, because then it's going to be way harder to develop it later on. a lot of like competition oriented. Also, right now is a great time to get into the school because classes are smaller. I'm getting a lot more calls in, and I'm getting some more people coming in for trials and stuff. But like right now is a good time because you can get in and you can get a lot of like personalized attention in smaller classes.
I'm going to
without
interrupt you
having
and
to-
tell you now, like, take advantage of this, guys, because when a small school opens up, the first students are always the quickest learners because they get the most one-on-one time. So like if you don't get in now, you're missing out on an opportunity. Essentially, you're getting private lessons or at least small group privates. And that doesn't happen. Normally you have to pay extra for that. So to get in on these classes now as a small school opening up brand new, this is a time where you're getting the best bang for your buck. Once he's been there and he's established himself and it's 4 years down the road, you're not getting that anymore. You're not getting that that one-on-one. It goes to what me and Butch were talking about before, where you got like, hey, I've got 25 people on the mat, or I've got 20 people on the mat. Like, I can't give you the individual attention that I can if there are 6 people on the mat.
Right. But yeah, just like a lot of competition focus. But again, like I said, for beginners, because everybody's got to start out first. I don't have got a few people in the area kind of coming in. There's a guy from category 5, Josh Wade. He's fought before. He's training with me now some. He's still up at Wes's. I'm not like scalping Wes's students or anything, but he comes down because he trains during the day with me and then goes in the evening to Wes's, just because Wes doesn't have any daytime classes. Excuse me, the shakes give me a little burps. But so he's coming down. Another thing is we are hoping to eventually, I'm getting back into my own striking. I've reached out to Neil recently. I'm going to have to make some trips up there over the next year or so. But there is an opportunity there for me to affiliate out of him and offer some Muay Thai classes and then eventually build up with an MMA program. But as far as that goes, I'm going to stick to the same rule that applied to the school I started out in, which is I don't want anybody. Josh will be an exemption because, again, he's under Wes. He's training a lot of different people and he's actively fighting already. But like for me, anybody that comes to train under me will need to get a blue belt before I'm going to go out and try to find him a fight. But also that's another thing too, like, I've been in a lot of places where like when you're fighting, you're your own manager, you're your own coach, nobody's on top of you. So like anybody who's wanting to come in and compete, I'm not doing anything else. I'm keeping records of who's in what class, what we're studying that day, so I can keep track of what everybody needs to see before competition. If somebody's wanting to get into something like this and compete for real in jiu-jitsu or to actually go fight, like, I'm going to be available to like go corner you, to help you with your, like, keep you on top of you with your conditioning, to keep on top of you with your diet. And a lot of that is just, experience over time and like things that I've learned from other people. Like Jason Butcher, I've probably learned 80% of what I know about what it is to be a grappler from him. Maybe not 80% of my technique is from him, but just like how to take care of yourself, how to carry yourself, how to, interact with other people that you engage with. If anybody's watched, what is it?
Tell me about this chicken water he drinks.
Bro, that's what
you know about
I
this.
was waiting for one of you guys to ask me what I was sucking down.
Oh no, like this is perfect then. Tell me about this.
Yeah, so I got on. So if I had followed Butcher's advice from the day
I don't know. You've been like burping and throwing up the entire time, so I don't know.
Not throwing up, just some light burps. I feel like a superhero, man. I've lost like 15 pounds or so, like 10 to 15 pounds since I opened the school on the 1st. I'm dropping weight so fast. I'm active. I'm conditioning like 3-4 times a day. Well, I'm training 3-4 times a day, conditioning a couple times. But so like chicken water is the truth. And you can do it a lot of different ways in terms of the recipe. But to boil it down to basics, you throw some chicken in some boiling water and you let it cook. You take that chicken out and you stick it in a nice high-powered blender with some water. I usually add a little salt, maybe some garlic too for flavor and for electrolytes. But just chicken water, you just blend that and you slam it back after a workout. And that would be the basic chicken water. no frills. You're just covering your protein. You got to cover all your other macronutrients some other way.
But are you blending the chicken up? Are you drinking the water that was with the chicken? Which one?
No. It's just the chicken with fresh water. It's not like boiled like hot dog water in there. No, it's the chicken by itself. You rinse it off so all the stuff's off of it that's boiled out of it. And then you just put however much in depending on your recipe and you blend it up. And I got a few different
ones. Tell
me
your recipe because I'm still confused. Tell me your recipe.
So like this one, I'm actually, after we get off here, about to head down to my place, the gym down there, and hit another conditioning session before bed. So this one's like a pre-workout, but I also swam right before we got on, so I needed a little bit of protein. So this one was chicken, spinach, avocado, and some blueberries. Give me some good fats before I go work out. And
you blend this chicken, and let me just get this straight. Are you drinking a blended up chicken?
Yeah.
See, I didn't want to gloss over this.
No, it's exactly as shocking as it sounds. Like there's no part of this that like you're gonna be like, oh, that makes sense. It's always gonna be me pulling chicken breasts out of a boiling pot and then sticking it into a blender and then drinking that.
What do you think about this, Gary? Did you know this happened? Because I knew this. I knew about this, but
there's some things that people are willing to do in order to get better at things. This is not one of those things for me.
Donuts and bourbon, bro.
I appreciate you. Now, listen, I'm 100% on board with why it works.
Yeah,
I'm just not doing it.
No, I've seen like high level athletes. Like I've been around high level athletes who've asked me what I'm drinking. And when I tell them, they'll start gagging. I'm like, you don't do anything like this to get an edge? I'm like, I've done it before when I was bouncing at bars and had girls actually like gag and have to go outside and throw up.
I'm
like,
way closer.
I don't like the color green. It's like, how are you alive?
I'm way closer to the Mikey Musumeci all pizza and spaghetti diet than I am drinking chicken water. I love
That's
you.
That's baffling that he can pull that off.
Well, it is, but it also, when you like listen to him talk about his training, then it like makes sense.
Then
well, you need all those calories and you need all those carbs in order to fucking function. So,
right.
Yeah. But it kind of comes back to what we were talking about. We've talked about it many times on here. Is like, if you want to be good at something, there are certain sacrifices you have to make, and I don't care what it is that you have to do. Like, you have to fit it in how best you can fit it in. Right. Whether it be calorie intake or eating right or, controlling how much exercise / diet you have, like you have to fit it in. And if chicken water's your way, man, dude,
it keeps me on track.
Chicken water it up, because I know you're in a zone right now where you're like, hey, I'm still competing. I'm still a competitive guy. I want to be good at this. This is what I need right now. And it keeps me focused. You should be doing that then.
Right. So I have this recipe, and then I'll do chicken and sweet potatoes if it's like after a hard lift. And then I'll do green shakes where I'll do like kale, spinach, carrots, and then like hemp seeds, chia seeds, flaxseed. And then another one I'll do is
here's what we need to do. I hate to cut you, but here's what we need to do. Like Gary, Nathan, the three of us need to get on there and try one of these together. Like, meaning, because you're fine. I'm thinking chicken, chia seeds, and sweet potatoes, and I got to drink that shit.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see how this goes.
Right.
Like, I'm not even joking. Like, this.
Let's do it.
Sometimes I say shit and I'm not serious. I'm serious. I want to drink this so that
it's not that bad. It's like if you can just get over the idea of like liquid chicken. If you can, it's just a texture thing.
Yeah, I'm more worried. I'll tell you now. I'm not worried about myself. I'm worried about Butch. When we went to Universal Studios in Orlando, I did the Fear Factor challenge, and part of that was drinking.
People,
I'm a fucking animal, but part of that was drinking like this. It tasted like cottage cheese mixed with salmon. Like, it was not great. It didn't taste wonderful, but I was able to chug it back, and that was not a problem. So I don't have a problem doing it. It's just not something I'm going to be like, I would do this regularly to stay in shape. Nah,
right.
Terrible about this. I feel terrible about this whole thing, but I'll do one.
Let's do it.
Let's film it and put it on YouTube.
Let's do
on
it.
everybody's YouTube. I'm not even joking. I'm in.
I'm
Right.
in. I'm in.
Also, full disclosure for anybody watching, I did not come up with chicken water.
I
That
got
credit
you.
goes completely to Jason Butcher and Joel Taormina, who this is the story. This was back like before like the NutriBullets, back when it was like the tiny little magic bullets. Butcher was cutting weight for fights, and Joel was cutting weight for bodybuilding competitions. They were sitting around, and a commercial came up, and they were showing all the like fruit shakes and stuff you could make with it. And they were just like, I bet we could put chicken in there. Because they were just so sick of eating dry chicken breasts to cut weight. And that was the birth of chicken water.
I'm
The birth
in.
of chicken water.
I'm gonna tell
NutriBullet,
you.
if you're listening, hit me up for sponsorship.
We're
I'll
gonna
at
do-
your boy.
okay. Well, we're gonna have to get together again in the future, and it'll be a quick podcast
Yeah.
of us.
It doesn't even
drinking
need to be a
chicken water.
podcast. Let's just
Yeah.
make it like a YouTube video that we all can put on a channel. But like,
Right.
I'm already picturing me throwing up and everybody laughing. I'm not even joking. I'm in. There's
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
It sounds fucking terrible. It sounds the worst thing that I've ever was like, okay, let's do it. And I'm the one that's spurring this on, but I'm in.
You'll live, I promise.
Absolutely.
It's in support of you. That's
Yeah,
why
I appreciate it.
and Jason Butcher. That's where I saw
Chicken
it.
water for Jewel City.
Yeah.
Nate, how do we get a hold of you? How do we if we want to come and see you, where do we catch you at?
All right, so the school is located at 1049 12th Street West in Huntington. That's not the regular 12th Street, that's the West 12th Street. It's if you guys are coming down the interstate, it's right off of exit 6 on I-64. GPS should bring you right there. If the GPS is taking you any further than like 5 minutes off the exit, then it's taking you up to regular 12th Street. But it's a grid right there, so it's pretty easy to find. We have a Facebook account, an Instagram account, and a TikTok. And if you want to get a hold of me and just to contact me personally, you can message me through any of those, or my number is 304-521-5141. And I get text to that number, so anybody can text me too. They don't have to call. So
Well, I'm gonna be sending you dick pics now. So
awesome. I love it.
it won't be mine. It won't be mine. It'll be a big
Okay.
one.
Yeah.
Nice.
It'll be great. It'll be epic.
All right.
I appreciate you coming on. I know you got to go. I'm excited to see what happens with Jewel City. I'm excited to see what happens with the soap.
Yeah.
I'll shoot you a message because I want to get some of the tea tree oil soap, and we got to figure out what we're doing. So
Yeah, just shoot me your address, and I'll mail you a couple of sample bars right out.
absolutely.
If any other gym owners out there might be listening to this, reach out to me. I can send you a couple samples too to try out the two different types that we have, and then go from there.
Absolutely.
So, hey, but thank you guys so much for inviting me on. I really appreciate it.
No, man. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate you. Excited to see what happens with Jewel City here in the near future. Butch,
you.
as always, brother, I love you. And thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Butch. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Let's hope Nathan kicks some butt, and let's go watch this Dallas Cowboy guy miss some more extra points.
I'm down for that.
All right.
All right,
Hey,
guys.
good luck to your all's respective teams.
Love you,
Hey,
man. Yes.
good night, guys.
Adios. Take it easy.